بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجه الكريم. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah to raise the rank and the status of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere and noble intentions. Insha'Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, we pray that all of you are well, that all of you are in good spirits, and that all of you are prepared to have an intriguing and educational and motivating and uplifting conversation tonight as we reflect on struggle and resistance in the African American community in the light and of the passing of Assata Shakur. We wanted to have a moment to discuss the lessons that can be learned from her life, the lessons that can be learned from struggle for liberation and justice and injustice and freedom of oppression and the right to a fair encounter with the justice system. And all of these matters, inshallah, during this roundtable, we're going to have that discussion because it is important when notable figures in our community are no longer there to tell their stories and to share their insights, that we have reflections, that we think about it. And what do we learn from these life stories? And how do we use beneficial things to continue our struggle for collective liberation and justice and equality and prosperity and all of those things that we as a people want. Oftentimes as Muslims, we act like we're not black anymore, yet we still face the same situation and reality of black people have been facing for generations. So inshallah, tonight, the Black Imams Roundtable will spend some time, and I think it's just for tonight because this is something, really these issues that are dear to us. And there are many layers of it that we should discuss, that we must discuss. So tonight, inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala, we're going to Furqan, don't wait. Put your question up. You don't got to wait till after the introduction. Right now, put your question. This is your chance. Talk about struggle. Talk about liberation. Talk about revolution. Talk about the movement. Black power. I'm messing with our brother from Washington, D.C. This is his favorite topic. Even more than the obligatory knowledge. No. Alhamdulillah. So inshallah, I'm going to remind you that the Black Imams Roundtable is a movement in and of itself, which needs our support. So I remind you to everyone chip in to fulfill our covenant that we had in keeping this work going, as we have many events coming up over the next month or two, and we need to support those events and facilitate them. So your contributions to these efforts are extremely important, and each and every one of us, if we do our part, no one has to do a lot. So I'll pass the mic to Imam of the Boom Bat, who's always engaging in struggle with the local police department.
Yep, FTP for life.
So this is right up his alley too. So inshallah, a lot of people will really find some interesting things to discuss tonight. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah reward you. And guess what, Imam Faheem?
What's that?
Tonight, if you don't come through strong and let me be your prop, I'm coming through and I'm gonna be raging.
Okay.
All
Well,
right,
let's turn the heat up, inshallah. I gotta.
All right,
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa min tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. So alhamdulillah, we welcome you all to tonight's broadcast or podcast. I don't know which proper term, but it don't even matter. Right, we here. Welcome you all to our broadcast tonight at Black Imams Roundtable. I'm Imam Faheem, aka the Imam of the Boom Bap, aka the Ghost of Heavy D. MashaAllah, I'm joined with my fellow comrade and Imam in arms, Imam Naeem Abdullah from Masjid of Pittsburgh, and Imam Amin who brought us out. And so inshallah we get started. So just to remind you to like and share, get us in those algorithms, and also please be sure to make those contributions that we suggest. $10 per person. You know, we get 100 people to do $10. You know, that's good. If we do 50, that's good. But our goal is $500 each week, which is a very minimum amount. You know, but the rewards are great. You know, on your scale of good deeds, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us all in every good. I mean, so I don't want to waste any time, but I am going to try to bring some fire. I actually prepared a PowerPoint presentation. Let me try to see if I can pull it up. Okay. Give me 1 second. How is everyone tonight? By a show of thumbs or whatever emoji you can use. Okay. Okay. Pull this up. It's taking a long time. Well, you know what? Hold on. I don't do this up wrong. Okay, here we go. All right. So I've entitled this presentation, What Produced an Assata Shakur? What Produced an Assata Shakur? And so this is a presentation for the Black Imams Roundtable episode, a reflection of the struggle and resistance in light of the passing of Assata Shakur, presented by me, Imam Faheem of the Black Imams Roundtable. And inshallah, so I tried to make it as informative as possible and as concise as possible, inshallah, because I don't want to take up too much time, because this issue and these issues can get really, they can go on and we can talk about them for days and days, you know. So it's something that's very passionate, because it is, as Imam Amin mentioned, sometimes we act as if we forget who we are as Black people in America. And because, you know, we become Muslim and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wipes our slate clean, you know, our experiences and situations that we go through in this wilderness of North America, they still exist. And so we have to learn how to adapt to them, you know, and approach them with an Islamic mindset and outlook, inshallah. And so, but at the same time, still remember who we are and what produced us, because what producing Assata Shakur also produces us as well, you know. And so this is the name of the slideshow. So let me go to the next slide. So first, I want to give you all an intro to her bio. She was born Joanne Deborah Byron, July 16, 1947 in Queens. She grew up in a working class family that instilled in her a deep sense of racial pride and awareness. And after her parents' divorce, she spent much of her childhood in the segregated South with her grandparents in Wilmington, North Carolina. These early experiences shaped her consciousness about systemic racism. During her adolescence, she was known as an avid reader and a sharp thinker. So that's the first thing, that education is key. During our experience here, they never wanted us to know how to read. And some of us, we still don't find any pleasure in reading, And so we should be avid readers, inshallah. And the first command in the Quran, Iqra, read, And so when she got of age, around 20 years old, she started attending the Borough of Manhattan Community College. And then she went to the City College of New York, where she was married at one time. And her husband was named Louis Chesimard. She married him in 1967. And that's when she took the name Joanne Chesimard. That was her name before she took the name Assata Shakur. And so in that political climate, you can imagine in 1967, after the death of Malcolm X, after the death of Medgar Evers, and the climate at that time, and right before the death of Dr. King, it was a very sensitive time in America. And so she was, getting her political awakening, and it deepened and it's fueled her involvement in the Black liberation struggle and protests against the Vietnam War, the unjust war. In Vietnam, this is how cocky America is, and they don't call it the Vietnam War. They call it the American War. We didn't start no war. These people came here messing with us. And we had to send them back with their tail between their legs. Because, the Vietnam War, look at it historically, it was an embarrassment for America. In the late 1968, she joined the Black Panther Party, where she became known for her organizational skills and commitment to the party's mission of addressing systemic oppression, poverty, and police brutality in Black communities, which was running rampant. And speaking of the Black Panthers, it was really rampant in their area and all throughout the country. And, during that time, and the Black Panther Party formed in 1966, and then they started having some internal strife not too long after that with leadership and all of that. And so she went on to a new movement, which is called the Black Liberation Army, a BLA, which is a more militant group advocating armed self-defense against state violence. And so, when we let the enemy tell the narrative, they make us seem like we're the ones in error. But all we ever tried to do was feed people like the Black Panthers and stand up for people who were being oppressed. And so that's the narrative we should buy into. And now, please excuse me if this font is too small. I don't know how does it look. Can you all read it? It might be a little small, but so I'm going to the next slide. And so the definition, the Black Liberation Army was formed in 1970, and it lasted technically up until 1981. But of course, when Assata was locked up and and she was escaped from prison, it started to die down, but officially ended in 1981. And so this is the ideology of the movement. The idea of a Black Liberation Army emerged from conditions in Black communities, conditions of poverty. And so you should remember these conditions of poverty, indecent housing, massive unemployment, poor medical care, and inferior education. The idea came about because Black people are not free or equal in this country, because 90% of the men and women in this country's prisons are Black and third world, because 10-year-old children are shot down in our streets, because dope has saturated our communities, preying on the disillusionment and frustration of our children. The concept of the BLA arose because of the political, social, and economic oppression of Black people in this country. And where there is oppression, there will be resistance. The BLA is part of that resistance movement. The Black Liberation Army stands for freedom and justice for all people. And so this is taken directly from Assata Shakur's her autobiography. And yes, definitely, it sounds like this is today. This is something that she wrote in the 70s, and it sounds like something that's going on today. And so we can readily identify with these things, poor education, lack of jobs, high unemployment rates, mass incarceration. All of these things have increased since this time, And so this just shows you the status of us And in the Public Enemy song, Chuck D said, our status is the saddest, so I care where you at, black. We have to care about our status because it hasn't really changed much, and it's actually worsening. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. And so when we talk about black liberation from 1970 up until now, how do things look? And so this is taken from an article that's called Mass Incarceration, the Whole Pie in 2025 from a website called the Prison Policy Initiative. And it said, I took an excerpt from the U.S. legal justice system, and I put the quotes of justice. The quote unquote justice systems hold nearly 2 million people, 1,566 state prisons, 98 federal prisons, 3,116 local jails, 1,277 juvenile correctional facilities, 133 immigration detention facilities, 80 Indian country jails. They're still locking up Native Americans, as well as in military prisons, civil commitment centers, state psychiatric hospitals, and prisons in the U.S. territories at a system-wide cost of at least $182 billion each year. And so, and I didn't put this quote in here, but Assata mentioned in his book that prison is an industry, based on the backs of us. And so it took the place of slavery. And, we know about all the stuff about that slavery was supposed to be in law except for people who are in prison. So they just transfer it over to the prison system, and they built a whole establishment of cheap labor on our backs. And so Black Americans represent approximately 13% of the U.S. population, but constitutes 32% of the sentenced prison population, indicating a disproportionate rate of incarceration. The imprisonment rate for Black Americans is nearly 5 times higher than that of white Americans and more than twice the rate of Hispanic Americans. These figures reflect systemic inequalities that have persisted across multiple decades and continue to shape the landscape of American criminal justice. And so this is taken from a site called the Global Statistics, U.S. Prison Rate Statistics 2025. And so what this means is that in any society, the majority of the population is supposed to be reflected in every category. For instance, if whites hold the majority of the population, then they're supposed to reflect the big numbers in every category. And so it's a disproportionate number for us. 13% of the U.S. population, and then we almost half of the people incarcerated in U.S. prisons. That makes absolutely no sense, And so this by design. There's nothing we don't, it's nothing new for us, but these are just some stats, how these things are shifting for us. And even now, this is still something that's really relevant in 2025. And they're talking about building more prisons, So. And here, there was a picture that I shared. There was a chart of poverty rates because poverty, prison, lack of unemployment, lack of good education. So here it shows what we were just talking about in the last slide. That African Americans, 21.3%, the poverty level. 21.3% of us, roughly 8.3 million people, are below the poverty level in America. Now look at this subtle thing that they try to do. Well, they always try to take away our narrative. They put the American Indians over top of us. So they got us by a couple points as far as being below the poverty line, but it's not a lot of them, 676,000. So they're trying to subtly say the American Indians are, more below the poverty line than you all, right? And so it's a subtle way of saying you can't, and this is what I've been hearing lately on people saying that we always playing the victim. Whenever we bring up these things about systemic racism, that even in their search and their researches, they know that we have been disproportionately represented in these areas, right? And poverty, lack of education, and incarceration. 21.3% of us, 8.3 million approximately, these are rounded off figures, are below the poverty line. And for white people, it's 9.9%. 9.9%. And so this just shows you the shift of these things are still going on. And so there is a deliberate system that's still going on to keep us down, and that we should never forget. And we should never think that America has has the best interest for us, right? I forget. There's a saying, I forgot to post it, but it's saying that a system that was never meant to take care of you cannot fail you. A system that was never built for you anyway, it can't fail you because it was never for you in the first place. And so we can never forget that when we live here, that this system was never built for us. You know, I was just doing some research. You know, from the time that the Constitution was drafted in 1776, these people, with all of their advancements and their intelligence and their logic and their civilization, they did not realize until 1954 that segregation was unconstitutional. It just dawned on them that in 1954, segregation was unconstitutional, right? And so we had to go through a whole bunch of Jim Crow laws, black codes, sundown towns, lynchings, all of that stuff for them to, you know what? This is against the law. And this is still the system that we still trying to tap into, you know, to look for our rights, right? This is something to think about. So this is the poverty rates, right? The next slide, the disparity of wealth. So this is important. So this was taken from a book that's called The Extreme Taxing of the Wealth. So there's a movement that people are calling for taxing the wealthy. And so they have some stats. Said there are 1.4 million individuals with a net worth of 5 million or more in America, and with the wealth totaling 28 trillion, right? So the top 10% of people control 60% of America's wealth. There are 63,505 individuals with 50 million or more with a combined wealth of 12.8 trillion. Between 2016 and 2021, the number of individuals with wealth over 50 million increased from 37,140 to 63,505, with combined wealth increases from 8.4 trillion to 12.8 trillion, a gain of 51.84% adjusted for inflation. There are 740 billionaires with the wealth totaling 5.1 trillion throughout and they did this throughout the pandemic. So, you know, throughout the pandemic, people saw a bag. While they kept us contained and locked in, the wealthy got even richer. Throughout the pandemic, beginning in March 2020, the wealth of the U.S. American billionaire class increased 2 trillion. The 5 richest people in the United States, as we know, is Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, and Larry Page. I think Larry Ellison is the one who just bought TikTok, if I'm not mistaken. And so what they're doing on TikTok now is they're starting to censoring anybody that, you know, seems like that they're, you know, anti-Zionist, right? These are the 5 richest people in America, right? And it says the rich compared to everyone else, the richest billionaire owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of U.S. American society. U.S. billionaires own $500 million more in wealth than the bottom 60% of U.S. American society. And so what they were talking about with the annual wealth tax, that an annual wealth tax would be a tax on the rich that will tax them in a way that won't affect their wealth, but can remove poverty. So they're saying in the United States that this is what they're proposing. If they do this tax, 928.39 billion a year will raise at 2% on wealth over 5 million, 3% on wealth over 50 million, and 5% over 1 billion. A more progressive wealth tax would raise $1.34 trillion, would raise at 2% on wealth over 5 million, 5% on wealth over 50 million, 10% over 1 billion. And so what this means is that if they just do a wealth tax at these rates, which are low, they can raise enough money to end poverty in America, or at least people are well off, that they can have a balance. 10% of the people, the richest people in this country, control 60% of its wealth. And the other 40% are scrambling under the poverty line, just making ends meet, and it's growing. The disparity of wealth between the rich and the poor is growing. So it's no longer about race, it's about wealth. And so people got to get in line with money. So if you fall in line with that movement, you know, and you know, they allow you to make some money, you know, that it comes at a cost. You have to, you have to disown your race. You can't do nothing for your people because now you with these people based on money and not based on taking care of your people. And so this is one of the arguments that they're making today, having a wealth tax, that can eradicate poverty. But guess what? You know who's fighting it? The people with money. So never think that they have your moral interests at heart. These people have the ability to remove poverty, to take homeless people off the street, to give people a better chance at the American life, right? Or it's supposed to be the American life of, being able to earn your way, and they won't do it. Yeah, and this is like, this is the Islamic, tax system. Just imagine if everybody had the same tax, according to the zakat system in Islam. It can also remove poverty. But what the people who are rich are able to hide their money and they get all the tax breaks, and the people who are working hard, have to carry the burden of taxes, right? And so these people hide their money because they don't want to share it with you. So this is based on greed, and this is one of the sicknesses of this dunya, that these people who are behind this is their punishment in life as well, right? And Allah says in the Quran, you'll find them, they're the most greedy of this worldly life, and that they wish they can live 1,000 years, right? They don't want it to end. And so they're taking all of the initiatives to make sure that their wealth doesn't come to an end. But who pays? At what expense? It's on the backs of us who are working hard. And so they sold us a dream that, if you work hard and you save your money, you could become rich one day. And we've been trying to reach that dream forever, right? And so, this is a system that there's an increasing discussion about it, taxing the wealthy, at a minimum tax, right? And so these things still exist. High poverty rates, high unemployment, incarceration, lack of education, And so when they passed the bill separate but equal, it was never separate but equal, It was never separate. It was separate, but it wasn't equal. So, these things are still plaguing us in 2025. And so these are recurring themes in Black America: high unemployment, inferior schools, bad police relations, poor living conditions. And so these are the things that spawn movements like the Black Panther Party, right? Because they were subjected to these conditions that made them feel like, we got to do something. And so this quote is also, I don't know if it's in Assata's autobiography, but she is quoted saying this. She is saying that nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who are oppressing them. And this is a sobering message for us. We're still trying to tap into this so-called democracy to demand our rights from people who never had included us in the first place. And they're never going to give them to us. And even when we produced law, we had laws changed, then they amended the laws. Right? So they had a law in the books, and then they had a whole unwritten law. The Jim Crow theory was never law on the books. It was an unwritten law that was understood. There was no law about Jim Crow laws being legitimate. Colored and white water fountains, bathrooms and all these kind of things, how people, even if they had money back in the day, they had to, they had to know where they traveled, where they could stay at, because, even if they were wealthy Black people, they couldn't stay in the same hotels as white folks. And I remember reading a story, and, it was about Sammy Davis Jr. And, he used to perform with, what's his name? Frank Sinatra and all of those people, and Sammy Davis Jr., when they went to a town, they demanded him as a performer, but he couldn't sleep in the same hotel that his fellow performers were, And there was one incident with Frank Sinatra, he stepped up and be like, nah, that's not going to happen. He's going to stay. So it takes that kind of resistance to this oppression, But nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who are oppressing them. Because the oppressor has no moral compass. Why are we trying to appeal to them by all of these things, by legislation and voting, and I'm not downplaying voting, but voting is not what gets you what you get. you think about it, you vote for your politicians, right? And then who controls them? The people with money. The people who control the politicians who are behind them, their cabinets, none of them you elect. None of them you elect. You know, and so I'm not saying, you know, because people get on, oh, our people died for the right to vote. Our people died for the right because they believed in something better. They did not die for us to have a choice between two imbecilic parties. They did not die for us to have a choice between Democrats and Republicans, and then by default Democrats because we think that they're better than the Republicans. You know, right now in our city, they have a Democratic Party running, and they have no opposition party running against them. Not even a Republican Party or an independent party, because the people have been conditioned that vote Democrat, you know. And so these politics, even if we fighting each other about who to vote for, who not to vote for, Republican and Democrat, all of them work for the same people. All of them work for the same people. And you know who you should check out that they've been blocking her on social media is Cynthia McKinney. All you know who Cynthia McKinney is? Dr. Cynthia McKinney. Dr. Cynthia McKinney was a senator, a congresswoman out of Georgia. You know, and so she was very vocal when she was in the House, calling out the people who were dual citizens or Israel firsters and all of these things that they were doing to keep us down. And she ran for president twice. She was a candidate for president twice, right? And so when she started speaking up, you know, they started blocking her. And so she did a recent YouTube interview. So she says, you know, she thought it was about justice and these two parties standing up for things. She said at one time she's seen these two opposing parties arguing online. And then she says she's seen them hugging and kissing behind the scenes because they all work for the same entity. They're both all bought and paid for by the same people. So don't let that trick Republicans and Democrats get you. They all work for the people who have bought them. And I believe out of the however many seats in the House, I can't remember the number, it's only like about 30 seats of Congress people, senators and Congress people who haven't been bought out. 30 seats out of the, I don't know the number, you know. But these people who are supposed to represent us, they do not have any moral compass. You know, that's why we are still fighting for equal rights in 2025. In 2025. That's something to think about. We'll go to the next slide. So these are the things, are recurring themes. Right now, high unemployment, no jobs, food deserts in our cities, you know, inferior schools. Even with this, you know, with these Renaissance schools and charter schools that's growing up and they're developing new schools, these schools are inferior to traditional public schools. And in most places, you have to share the funding with them. And so your funding is cut. Right. And so when people sign their children up for these charter schools and Renaissance schools and all of that, then that funding goes with them. And they look at, you know, people think these schools are new. Many of these schools, they have unqualified teachers. They don't have to be certified. The janitor could be a teacher in some of these schools. You know, poor living conditions. So now there's been so poor that the gentrification is coming in. They're buying up these properties at cheap rates. People who are bought and paid off by the politicians or the business people, you know, they're not selling you property. It's those people who deal in property. You can't vote. You can't even really buy any properties now because they're sitting on them. So people can come in and buy them at cheap and then rebuild them while they give you subsidized housing in another town, you know, and the town that doesn't want you, right? So go to the next slide. And so all of that, I was just, you know, giving a precursor to what produces someone like Assata Shakur. Someone who normally was book smart, would have went to college, just, you know, pursuing the American dream, but then had a consciousness, had an awakening, had a sahwa about what's going on and wasn't willing to sit on the sidelines. And so that's for us, that we have to stand up for justice. We have to stand against what's wrong, you know, even if it causes us some, you know, some discomfort, you know. And so now about the narrative about, you know, what most people might know her for, right? And so you all know that she was arrested for killing a state trooper in New Jersey on the New Jersey Turnpike in May of 1973, right? And so this is the narrative. If you look it up, this is what they said. She was charged with multiple crimes in the early 1970s, including bank robbery. In 1973, she was involved in a shootout on the New Jersey Turnpike. The incident left State Trooper Werner Forster and Black Liberation Army member Zaid Malik Shakur dead. Assata was wounded in the incident. She was arrested and convicted of murdering Foster, as well as 7 other felony charges related to the shooting, and she was sentenced to life in prison. And so they put her on the FBI's list, so when she was accused of these, she was accused of these, right? So this is the narrative that most people will read. But now let's look at the facts. Let's look at the facts. I know this is printed kind of small. I don't know, but so here is the facts. So when they did forensic evidence examined by both the New Jersey Crime Laboratory in Trenton and the FBI crime laboratories in Washington, D.C., this is what they found. The fingerprint analysis of every gun and every piece of ammunition found at the scene showed there was no fingerprints of Assata found on any of them. That was the official analysis that was admitted into evidence. That what this says, neutron activation analysis taken immediately after Assata was taken to the hospital that night showed that there was no gunpowder residue on her hands, effectively refuting the possibility that she had fired the gun. And the official analysis were admitted into evidence. So they allowed this to come into court, and this was official. She did not have any gunpowder. As a result of the bullet Harper shot under her armpit, meaning the other cop, while her arms were raised and her median nerve was severed, immediately paralyzing her entire right arm, shattering her clavicle and lodging in the chest so close to her heart that an operation to remove it was not feasible. A neurologist testified that fact at the trial. So they shot her in the back with her hands up. And the state offered no expert witnesses to refute this medical testimony. And photographs depicting the gunshot entry wound under her armpit, so professionals even admitted to this, and the entry wound of the bullet Harper shot into her back were admitted into evidence during the trial. So they cannot prove that she fired any weapon, right? And yet she still was convicted of murdering the state trooper, right? And so this is taken from the Statement of Facts, the New Jersey Trial of Assata Shakur, Hands Off Assata campaign. So these are the facts. So you don't hear this. Many times we hear what there's in the narrative that she was an enemy to America. Of course, these were they had communism was their base. But this is about, resisting oppression. And so we already know, if you don't know, about the New Jersey State Police. It was a racist organization that was officially founded in 1921. But before that, it was organized really to keep Black people in their place. Look up the study, the history of the New Jersey State Police. Even down to their uniforms, it was they formed them after Nazi soldiers, right? And from 1921 up until 1961, they did not have one Black state trooper. And the first Black state trooper was inducted in 1961. And his name escapes me now, right? But he wrote a book about all of the things that he suffered, right? And there was a brother, and we were supposed to try to get this book. We were trying to get this book. That there was a Muslim brother that lives in New Jersey. His name is Yusuf Amin, and he wrote a book, but I couldn't get a copy of it. But it's called. Let me get the name of it. I do have the name of it. And this brother's from New Jersey. He's a Muslim. And there was plenty of state trooper minority officers that had lawsuits against the New Jersey State Police. And that's within the department. That's not even the numerous lawsuits that they have from citizens and residents on the New Jersey Turnpike. And those from Jersey know that turnpike is dangerous, especially if you get pulled over. Your life could be lost. And so this is what happened in 1973. And even to the day, this is what happened, So the name of his book is called The End of Racial Profiling by Yusuf Amin. It's a Muslim brother that I know him actually. And I called to find out the book is no longer in print. and the closest one is in New York. But I had somebody call his family, and he had one copy left, and so he wasn't willing to part with it, So, and it's a small book. It's only like 90 something pages, but in it he documents how the racism that they were subjected to in the academy, training for to be a New Jersey police officer. And he said that he noticed that all the guys who had incidences with residents or people, the patrolmen, were the ones who were getting beat up in the academy, that they couldn't fight. They always wanted to wrestle, but when it came time to box or martial arts, they used to get tossed around. He said these are the one that was aggressive against the citizens when they pulled them over. And so there's numerous of stories, you can look it up, the racist tactics of New Jersey state troopers, even with their profiling, that they're trained to look for people with long hair covering, dark skin, glasses. Anything that's not white Anglo-Saxon, you becomes a suspect. And many people, they can testify that you get pulled over on bogus stuff, And so here are the facts about Assata, that she never pulled the trigger, but she was convicted, because they needed somebody to blame, They needed somebody black to blame for the state trooper who was aggressive, will come from aggressive training against people who they consider enemies. And we don't even got to go into all the stuff that happened with the Panthers. And we already know black leaders assassinated for just trying to seek justice and equality and the right to be recognized as humans. That's been our struggle in this country. The right to be recognized as equals. Because why? They considered us inferior, and they still do. You can go online, and I think, where was it at? I think it was in Virginia, that a man was found hanging at a college campus. There was a story recently. In 2025, black people are still found hung. SubhanAllah. So, as they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The next slide. And so I know this is small. There was a way I was supposed to do this. But this is her, all of her alleged crimes. So you see that dismissed, acquitted, hung jury, acquitted. And the only one that she was convicted of was for the murder of the police, the state trooper, that there was no way that she could have shot him. And she was the one that was actually shot in her back with her hands up, right arm paralyzed. And if you read her biography, she tells about how they were coming in there and like in an open wound. They was sticking like weapons in there, assaulting her, doing all these kind of things, right? Just really harassing her because, of the racism that was prevalent throughout the New Jersey State Police and throughout the country, So America runs on racism. And this is the America that, your favorite president wants to be great again, the same kind of America. And look at the parallels. The police now, look at ICE. They're nothing but legal bounty hunters, legal kidnappers. Not legal, but these people have been given a license to kidnap people. They even have cases now that they're kidnapping people that have been proven to be American citizens. They kidnap people who did not have any issue or anything like that, but they kidnap them anyway. And look at the increasing police state that's creeping up on us, that even some of the, politicians warned us about. The creeping police state, the deep state, that now your police officer, when they're in your neighborhood, they resemble a military unit more than a police officer. You remember the days when you could call a police officer and they come get the cat out of the tree for you, they respond for you. They were community police. Now when the police come, they got tactical gear on. It's look like a military exercise more than just a routine, like anything, right? And so this was happening. And so the start of it started back then and even before. So all of her charges were dismissed. They had hung juries, or she was acquitted. And so, of course, when she got convicted, the story is, well, not the story, this is facts. Her comrades came and broke her out of prison because she understood that there was no way that she would be able to live in prison, and she would be totally harassed for the rest of her life and probably even killed. And so they made escape. She went to Cuba and she lived over there, and she still, represented the struggle. And, for years they were trying to get an extradition treaty with Cuba, and Cuba said no. And so this term, hands-off Assata, started to develop. Leave her alone, She was the fish that got away, even though she wasn't guilty. Even though she wasn't guilty of shooting the state trooper, she was the fish that got away. And I have to say, just coming from the society, I don't know if I should say alhamdulillah, but I was happy that she got away. I was happy that one of us got away, So the next slide. And so as I ended, just a couple quotes from Assata that's relative to us. She said, we have been completely brainwashed. This is from her autobiography. We have been completely brainwashed and we didn't even know it. We accepted white value systems and white standards of beauty, and at times we accepted the white man's view of ourselves. We had never been exposed to any other point of view or any other standard of beauty. And so that's even happening in the deen. Someone, taught us Islam and make us forget our blackness and our struggles in living in America, who we are, which is unique and very different from anywhere else in the world. And then what happened? We became Muslim, and now some of us, we became Blackistanis, right? And we became, talking like Arabs and stuff like that. And that's not a slight to Arabs. We love the ones who are Muslim, right? But, made us forget our culture, who we were. And we all know what happened in these times. People no longer want to be black. You even got some people out here now, they know they're blacker than black as far as color-wise, but they don't want to identify as a black man. What kind of nonsense is this? What else you gonna be? And so some of us, we adapted this. We don't, relate to our culture. We don't relate to our people. We don't even own our bop no more. Every black man has a bop, that the way he walks, the way he talks, the way he carries himself. And, that's just who our culture, we don't even want to be part of that. And we let people make us feel like, that was something bad. The second quote, she said, no movement can survive unless it is constantly growing and changing with the times. If it isn't growing, it's stagnant. And without the support of the people, no movement for liberation can exist, no matter how correct its analysis of the situation is. And Imam Amin mentioned this early on. We're something like a movement within Islam. And so in order for us to grow and not remain stagnant, we have to grow with the times. We have to adjust. We have to produce leaders. We have to produce scholars. We have to produce people who are capable and able of carrying it in their respective areas, so that this, the movement for us grows, that our unique situation in America that led us to Islam, and all of these conditions that, have plagued black people, is what led us to Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an opening for us to become Muslim, but we're still plagued by the same things that plague our regular people. We still live with them. We still travel with them. We go to school with them. And so we see the stuff still going on. We just been favored by Allah to be chosen to be his servants. But our people around us, all around us, they're still going through the same things, and they don't have a way out. So that's an indication for us, for the movement to grow. We got to support each other. We got to give da'wah. And, we need bread. We need bread. And the last one, she said, this was very profound. She said, dreams and reality are opposites. Action synthesizes them. So actions put them together. So we can have dreams, but our reality on the ground is that things are still tough and they're getting tougher. And so we have to make our dreams into reality by working, work. Imam Amin is always, pushing us. You got to work. You got to do the work. You got to be involved. You got to be committed. You got to stand up. You got to be on the front line. It's really no option, because this thing is getting worse and worse. Now, she had a whole bunch of other quotes that I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but, that militant side, that armed resistance, that armed struggle. And I would say on that part that we do need to, exercise our Second Amendment rights, because right now there's a movement to circumvent the Constitution by making people fear that, to not exercise their right to bear arms, right? We have that right, and so we need to get people trained and know how to use weapons, getting their license, being, legally licensed to carry, and there has to be more of us. Now, New Jersey has a lot of strict laws on gun control, but, in other states, they're a little more lax, and if you're able to learn how to shoot, get licensed, get training, get you some weapons, and be, exercise your right, And so these things are still relative to us where we live as Muslims. They didn't go away. We still have high unemployment rates, poor quality education, mass incarceration, all of these things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us, right? And so we got to take advantage of what he has given us by his favor, his grace, and his bounty to change this around, And we should never, all of us should have an Assata in us, ready to fight against something. Never let that die down. We should have a Huey P. Newton in us, a Bobby Seale in us, a George Jackson in us, being ready to resist whatever way that we can, And the way that we resist is that we hold up the banner of La ilaha illallah, because there's another assault that's coming on us, that people are telling another narrative about Islam. I've been seeing things online now where people are even black people saying that we're here trying to take over the country, right? That when we have open demonstrations of prayer or wherever we're gathering, they think it's a way of us trying to take over the country. And of course we give them dawah, but we minding our business. It's the radical, I don't know, the left or right, whichever one that these crazy white folks be on, that's the one they got to worry about. You know what I'm saying? We're just trying to get our right, our right to practice being Muslims, right? So, and then they trying to change the narrative. So when they feel a threat from you, they try to change the narrative. You see, if you Google any stories about Assata, they try to just say she was a cop killer. And the facts and evidence in court show she didn't even fire a weapon. She didn't even touch a weapon, right? So that's all I had to have for, I don't want to take too much time. And I apologize, my fellow Imams. That's all I ended there. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, izzah, restore our izzah and restore our quwa, to be people who are powerful and mighty and stand up against resistance and realize the struggle that we in and do our part, so that we can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I'll stop there and I'll pass it to Imam Naeem. How you stop this? Oh, good. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa afdalu salat wa atamu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa raddi Allahu ta'ala an asatati tabi'in wa ulama al-amalin wa a'immatul arba'atul mujtahidin wa muqallidihim ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Imam Faheem, for your excellent presentation. And that's a good thing that you went before me, because some of the things that I intended to mention in my presentation, I don't have to spend a lot of time on it because you already did it.
Yeah, but yours got a genius touch coming to it. So I might have to do mine over and bring it back afterwards.
Alhamdulillah. Before we get into it, I want all of you, if you haven't done so already, to come up off that bread. See, since Assata passed, I've been brushing up on what was going on in the community at that time. And see, there's so much stuff, man. Like Imam Faheem mentioned the Black Panther Party. And they were like above board. They're known for, like Imam Faheem was talking about the narrative. They're known for openly brandishing weapons, especially going to the California State House during a session with their weapons open and all that kind of stuff. So they're known for that kind of stuff, right? But, the government said, oh, hell no. So we're going to come down extra hard. We're going to make an example out of these guys. So a lot of them, because the government came down so hard, and what were they doing? They were having classes on politics, classes on economics, having free breakfast programs, and all of those kind of things, right? They had the mindset that is embodied in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he is reported to have said, "Sayyidul qawmi khadimuhum," that the leaders of the people are their servants. So they had this thing like, for the people. I want to serve my people. So now when we send our children, for example, to public school, right? If you meet the income requirements, right, you could get free or reduced price breakfast and lunch in school. But in their time, that didn't exist. So children were going to school hungry, especially black children hungry. So the Black Panther Party set up free breakfast program, right? And so you will see that this is a pattern, but so the government crushed them, and then they implemented their program themselves in the schools. So that's why you have it in school, because of the Black Panthers. So a lot of them were forced to go underground. And this is when you get the formation of the Black Liberation Army. And it's subhanAllah. Imam Faheem mentioned so many things. He mentioned these charges, that all of these charges that Assata had on her, she was free. And like she describes it in her autobiography, she watching the news and she hears about this shootout between somebody and these cops, right? And she like, wow, that's crazy. Then the next time she cut on the news the next day, they identifying her as one of the shooters. Can you imagine that? You watching the news and hear about some crazy shootout. Like, yo, wow, subhanAllah, that's crazy. And then the next time you see on the news, it's your face up there, and they're accusing you of being the shooter. And I know a lot of us probably can't imagine, but because back then, like now, when something happens, we know almost immediately because of the cell phone. You got to think about the late 1960s and the early 1970s. There was no cell phone. Internet wasn't like that. Probably only the military had it way back at that time. Regular people didn't have no internet. So if you wanted to catch the news came on TV at a certain time. Early, like in the morning, midday. But the main news was like, I forgot, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening when everybody was home from work, right? And then sometimes they had late night news. And you didn't have a million channels. You had like a handful of channels at best. And that's even when I was young. So at that time, they probably only had like ABC, NBC, and 1 or 2 other channels, right? Then you had them U channels, right? So just imagine a shooting happens. She watching it on the news. Then the next time the news comes on, the news is saying that she's the one who did the shooting. And so they developed a pattern because they've been watching her and all of those people at that time. They developed a pattern with her where if anybody could be remotely identified as a woman in these things, they said it was Assata, or as they called her by her government name, Joanne Chesimard. And Imam Faheem explained how she had that name. That was her birth name. That was her married name. And as the Imam of the Boom Bap was speaking, Chuck D's lyrics was playing in my head. Chuck D, Public Enemy, one of the big rap groups that was out in my youth, right? One of my favorite songs that they had was Rebel Without a Pause. And he had a line in there that says something to some supporter of Chesimard, right? When I was young, I didn't know who Chesimard was. I wasn't until I became Muslim until I found out who she was, right? I just liked the beat and everything. I wasn't one of those rap fans that said Chesimard. What is this Chesimard? Let me look that up, right? I was one of those. I like, you just sound good, right? So I said, okay, he was rapping about that stuff back then, right? So just a few things. Imam Faheem, again, he already mentioned these things, but I just want to give y'all some dates. So she's wanted for all of these shootings and bank robberies and all of this crazy stuff. And she's arrested at the time that she was shot, that Imam Faheem described, in 1973. She's arrested, obviously, in Jersey. Imam Faheem already explained that. But all of these cases that she is already wanted for is in New York, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, right? She got all these cases. So while she's incarcerated, she's back in New York, going to trial, beating all of these cases because stuff is just made up. She had nothing to do with it. So it's dismissed, hung jury, she just beating all of her cases. She also gave birth there. She gave birth in New York to her daughter. And if I remember, I want to come back and mention something about her daughter and her daughter's father later on. So she's convicted of murdering the police officer, the state trooper, in 1977. And as the evidence at trial points out, she didn't do it. In fact, she was shot in the back. And they tested her hand for gunshot residue, and it was none there. And her fingerprints wasn't on any weapon. But another thing, when you listen to the interviews of the people who knew all of them and was involved in the struggle, when they heard about it, they were shocked because, they knew each other and everything like that. But they wasn't the ones who people would expect would get in a shootout with police. When you listen to the interviews of those people who was around, who lived and knew all of them and was active, that's what they say. And subhanAllah, the one person who was killed in that incident, his name was Zaid Shakur. Zaid Shakur, I wonder if Akil Fahad is listening. Akil Fahad has a picture. If you are friends with Imam Akil Fahad on Facebook, he has a picture of a brother by the name of Salahuddin Shakur. And he was out of Philadelphia. They were all connected. Zaid Shakur is his son. And he has another son, Lumumba Shakur. Then you have Assata Shakur. Then you have Afeni Shakur. So they were like building like a Islamically influenced, they had a heavy Islamic influence, and they were like building a tribe, like a Shakur tribe. So that's why this name Shakur keeps coming up, and there's more. So, but a lot of this, like when you hear people talk about Assata now, right, they usually say Tupac's godmother, because most people, this generation can relate to Tupac. So in order for you to get to know who Assata is, let's mention Tupac. So that's how they were all connected, right? So, well, alhamdulillah, my presentation is not as fancy as Imam Faheem, so you have to forgive me, right? And so all of these things that on all of these slides, they're just screenshots of different quotes from her book. And before I get into it, how many of you have her book? A picture of the book is on the screen. How many of you have her book? I need to know. And while I'm waiting for you to answer, I don't want to be lecturing. I want this presentation that I'm giving to be interactive. So I'm inviting my fellow imams and you to jump in, because I chose these quotes for a reason. I want to discuss each of these quotes, inshallah. So if you don't have this book, you need to get it. So on page 180, she says, so now she's talking about, just to give you context, she's talking about when she just began to become awakened, how Imam Faheem even mentioned that, how she began to get a little conscious. And she said, I was gradually becoming more active. I began to control my life. Before going back to college, I knew I didn't want to be an intellectual, spending my life in books and libraries without knowing what the hell was going on the streets. Theory without practice is just as incomplete as practice without theory. The two have to go together. I was determined to do both. This right here is extremely important. We always talk about, Imam Amin especially always mentions that knowledge comes before action. In other words, you learn what you need to learn so that you can act upon it. Not that it's just some type of theory that you can just, I'm a real geek dude. I'm smart. Look at all these things I can quote, right? I can come on all of y'all pages and troll y'all and show y'all how much that y'all don't know and how much I know, right? Knowledge is not for that. Knowledge is for us to act according to. And I think this is one of the things that is in our community, the Black community, and I'm talking about in the Muslim community and outside of the Muslim community. One of the things that always seems to divide us in any of our organizations, you have those people who are connected with the streets, and then you have those people who are intellectual. And the intellectuals usually don't have nothing to do with the streets, and the people in the streets don't want nothing to do with anything intellectual. And there's usually a friction between the two parts of the organization. But Assata, she understood that you have to have a little bit of both. You have to have some book knowledge. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to have some learning, but at the same time, you have to be connected with the people. She understood this. And I think a lot of us, we don't get that point. Most of us, we're either on one side or the other. It's all theory, it's all intellectual, it's all in the books and on all of these things, but nothing in the streets, nothing grassroots, nothing connected with the people. And some of us, we're all people, streets, and work, but nothing, no theory that's to support what we're doing, no knowledge, no anything. So I think this is something this stood out to me when I read it. Before I go to the next slide, do any of y'all want to chime in on that point?
I think as we was talking, earlier before, when we do these type of discussions, and I think in everything, like we did before, we talk about education, edutainment, I think it's essential that we not just cheerleaders. One of the things that really disturbs me is we like to just have theory and no practice. And then you have those who want to get involved but don't want to learn. So they end up doing more harm than good, right? So you have the person just want to talk about it and hear about it, but don't want to get involved. You have, it says, I'm down. Okay, what you do? I'm down. That's what I'm doing. No. Down means you're going to do something. So I think that point, they say, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالْعَمَلِ, that knowledge is only that you practice, you implement it. So even in this discussion, as I'm listening, and Imam of the Boom Bap did a great discussion, my question always floats in my mind, what we going to do? Right? What we going to do? And I was talking about even the aspect of where we come collectively now in our masjids and our movements. We don't do collectively sometimes what 1 or 2, 3 or 4 people did by themselves in those days, right? And so you're talking about in the 70s and the 80s, even in the 60s, you had people sacrificing individually what whole groups of people won't do today, right? So the combination between knowledge and practice, recognizing that we have challenges that are put before us from our enemies. And our enemies are anyone who doesn't want good for us as a people. And that's a lot of enemies, even Muslim enemies. And that part, because, we get Muslim, that's a cop-out from practice. For a lot of us, I don't want to engage, I'm a Muslim. Even some of our enemies worse than the police are saying assalamu alaikum and praying. I'm talking about as an enemy to our people. I watched it. Am I going off here? I don't think you meant all that, right? But it disturbs me. Actually, I'm not feeling that great from this. I'm watching people manipulate our people in the name of Islam for our own destruction. I'm watching it, and they're emboldened with it. We have become the slaves in Islam. Like that's the hurting feeling. Like the thing that's supposed to give us liberation has made us the worst kind of slave as a people. Like, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It hurts more than even talking about these issues. Because you know what? We'll talk about issues and realize what they were struggling for, we struggling for the same thing inside of Islam and outside of Islam. And we'll forget it because we just theory. And practice means you got to sacrifice. And we love the world so much that we don't want to do nothing that has anything to do with sacrifice. So the whole story of Assata is just talk, because no one is prepared to sacrifice for what is right, for with the truth, that sacrifice she made for her life, because that's a sacrifice, right? So that theory and action, like that last line, the two have to go together. And I was determined to do both. Yeah, I'm learning, but I'm willing to engage in the struggle for the liberation of my people. Now, when we look back, I'm sorry, I'm way off, but I'm really thinking about this. When we look back, we may see that a lot of the struggle was misguided. Okay, you have Islam now. Show me the difference. You don't have the same excuse. You got Quran, you got Sunnah, you got Revelation, and you do far less. My mother-in-law, may Allah have mercy on her, she used to say to me, y'all got all this knowledge, and we ain't have much knowledge, but we built, and y'all not doing nothing but talking. So I would hope that our discussions lead immediately to some practice, some implementation. With the knowledge base that we have, we should do far more. With the resources we have, we should do far more. But we're actually getting worse because we think we don't even have no enemies no more. That's deep. All right, but I don't know if you wanted that much input. But
alhamdulillah, it's all good. Imam Faheem, you got any input on this point before I move on?
Power to the people.
The next quote is from the next page, page 181. She said, and 2 paragraphs above that is the same quote that Imam Faheem made when he mentioned that when she said that no movement can survive unless it's constantly growing. That quote that Imam Faheem mentioned, the quote that I have is on the same page, 2 paragraphs down. She said, the schools we go to are reflections of the society that created them. Nobody is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. Nobody is going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that knowledge will help set you free. Schools in America are interested in brainwashing people with Americanism, giving them a little bit of education and training them in skills needed to fill the positions of the capitalist system requires. As long as we expect America's schools to educate us, we will remain ignorant. And again, on this platform, we always emphasizing education. This is why Imam Amin just said it. We're fighting for the same things as Muslims inside of the Muslim community that we were fighting for as black people when Islam wasn't even on the table for a lot of us, right? So like even in Islam now, right? They done redacted blackness. They done took blackness out. So we have to read Islamic sources directly and put the blackness that they took out back in. And this is why we have black lessons every week. Because there's so many things from so many different aspects and areas as it relates to Islam that we don't know had anything to do with black folks. So a lot of us, when we approach Islam, even as Muslims, and we think about Islam, we feel like that's some other stuff. We feel the way many people, including myself, felt when I was in, public school. Hearing about the Romans, the Greeks, and all these ancient societies and stuff, and nothing about Africa, nothing about black folks, until we got to that one paragraph that said, oh yeah, your history right here, your slaves, picking cotton, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King. Now you're all free, the problem's over, right? Right? That was what we learned in public school. And you come to Islam and you get the same thing. Nothing black in there. If it's anything black, I don't care how noble the black figure or the history is. Bilal was a lot of things, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, right? He was a treasurer, he was a muezzin, he was a whole lot of stuff. But you got to make sure that you attach the slave to him. He was a slave, right? A whole lot of people was a slave, but you don't feel it necessary to keep mentioning it every time you mention their name. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he was a slave, but you don't keep mentioning that every time you mention his name. Juwayriyah, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, was a right-hand possession. She was a slave for a short period of time. You don't mention that every time that her name is mentioned. The mother of the believers, may Allah be pleased with her, right? But anytime somebody is notable and you can't attach anything negative to them, oh yeah, by the way, you was a slave, right? So a lot of us, we don't say it, but we don't feel any connection with Islam. We don't feel any connection with Islam. So a lot of us, we check out intellectually because there's no connection between us and anyone in Islam. When in reality, it is there, but they've taken it out. And this is why platforms like this is extremely important, because if you expect your enemy to teach you that knowledge that's going to free you, you in bad shape. Imam Amin just finished speaking about it. Assata we just quoted it right here. But a lot of us, we done drank the Kool-Aid. We think that Allah, because somebody says La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, that they're not against black people. Wake up and open your eyes. A lot of our enemies sometimes be praying right next to us. A lot of our enemies sometimes are our shuyuk, our scholars. And they purposely leave these things out and don't want to connect us back to our legacy. That's why our teachers are extremely important, because a lot of us are done checked out. We believe that Islam is just Arab supremacy, and Arab supremacy is just taking over for white supremacy. So a lot of us have checked out, and we went to the other extreme. There are a lot of us that reject hadith, sound hadith. They don't know nothing about the science of hadith or anything. They just believe it's racist. Because of this. Because this was their introduction to Islam. Racist treatment from other Muslims, not qualified commentary on hadith that could be interpreted wrong if you don't know what you're talking about. And so you have a whole lot of people that just outright rejecting hadith because they think it's against black people. So I'm going to stop there on my comment. Did any of y'all want to comment on that point? Let's right there.
I just think that's a powerful line. That even if you look across, that hasn't changed. I have a saying: the same problem that black people have in general are the same problems that black Muslims have specifically. So the general problem that applies to Black people in our society, especially, and in the world, is a specific problem for Black Muslims. If you watch, and I know all of us know it, either we put our heads in the sand like we don't see it. This is my conversation every day. You got Black Muslims who don't want to be Black and hate the fact that you even talk about being Black, while they suffer the consequences of being Black. Carter G. Woodson was talking about the house Negro, or, that one who wants to be close to Mr. Charlie. He said he hate Mr. Charlie and he hate his own people because his people are the reason why he can't be next to Mr. Charlie. He hate Mr. Charlie because Mr. Charlie won't let him in, and he hate his people because he blames his people why Mr. Charlie won't let him in. So he's in a situation where, like, it's deep. And I think to myself that, listen, that needs to be something we push, right, at every moment. Because while we're laying back, they slowly wiping us out the picture. The Trump administration on one level, in the general population, and then all of these movements, excluding African Americans, specifically, unless you're some token Negro that they can use. And this is real. And then at the same time, while we all watch this, we won't do anything to help ourselves. We won't empower those who have the guts to talk to the system and say, listen, man, do that yourself. I'm going over here. I'm Mr. Charlie. You will notice, and I told a brother this, right? I just had I'm getting ready to get on my soapbox, please.
Yeah, set it off, man.
Somebody came to me today, right? That was yesterday or the day before yesterday. And they was telling me, now they've been studying with us, right? Going over books, seminars, we have scholars, ijazas, they've been in the circle. Some immigrant comes, makes some claims, they like excited about it. They brought it to me, I looked at him, I said, this guy is not none of that. It's like none of it, none of what he's claiming. And they looking like, oh, you hating. I'm like, that look, like, oh, you hating. No, I'm not hating. He ain't none of that. All that stuff is claims. That's why I made that big, you remember the other day I made that thing, no claims? I was like, all that's claims. As we start talking, so I give them, ask about this, ask about this, ask about this, ask about this. And as we start asking about the stuff, you saw them claims just coming down, coming down, coming down. I'm like, it's that easy to trick us because we don't even believe in ourselves. And the brother's like, yeah, we see what you were saying. I'm like, but it ain't about that person. That's easy to do to us because we don't learn and we don't even want to implement what we learn. So it's easy someone to subjugate you. Easy. They even say insulting things that unfortunately have a level of truth to it. You are blissfully unaware. Blissfully unaware. Can we write that down? Please, let's get out of this. Blissfully unaware. Can we copy that? And let's make sure that's no longer a description for us. Blissfully unaware. And not even when people feel that way about you, they're even going to consider you. That's some deep stuff. Highly insulting, but unfortunately a reality. And that's what, because they taught you how to be blissfully unaware. They taught us that in their schools. They took a bunch of African Americans from the inner city, took them overseas, took them to these schools, brainwashed them, sent them back, destroy your community, change your whole culture. And then years later, you discovered, oh, they don't care about me, but you still teaching their doctrine. Make it make sense. You discovered they don't care about you, but you didn't discover that they miseducated you too. Like, think about that. And there's a whole group of graduates like that. Some got PhDs, some got masters, bachelors, all trained to be slaves. And then when they finally discover that they don't care about me, I'ma still promote and spread the doctrine of the same people who enslaved me. That's what she's talking about. We did it in education. We've been watching generations of oppression to African Americans, and we still believe that because I got a degree from them, that means I'm somebody. And we get that degree and still can't find a daggone job. In their society, under their system, and they never taught us how to make our own job. But the ones who was educating and building for us, the first thing they taught us is how to be an entrepreneur. That was the first lesson in all our Black movements, how to build for yourself. But we've turned it today to be like, you know something? You don't even count no more if you don't got a degree from the enemy's educational system. As if you retarded now or can't think because you don't have letters behind your name. And the one with the letters behind his name is the biggest slave you can find. He only knows how to move within a miseducation system. And they want him to be your leader now. Dr. Imam Sheikh. Shoof. In that time, no such thing as a Dr. Imam, Dr. Sheikh. Because we understood that doctor where they came from. The mindset. So the guys, man, now they want to make it, what school did you graduate? Not from the slave school you graduated from. Who taught you how to be a slave? Who taught you to hate yourself, black man? All right, I'm done. Go ahead.
Come on, Baggy man.
Imam Naeem myself wasn't going to say nothing, but see, once you start riling me up, I got a little rebel in me.
Next slide. This is from page 223. So now she's talking about Zayd Shakur. Once again, this is the same person who was murdered on the Jersey Turnpike when she was shot and arrested. So she's talking about when she just got into the Black Panther Party. She said, becoming Zayd's friend was something really important. After I joined the party, he would drop by my house every so often. We would listen to music and talk politics. I was forever teasing him about being part of the leadership. He was the Minister of Information. Since he was the only leader up at the Bronx Ministry, with the exception of Afeni Shakur, I had any respect for her. Y'all know Afeni is Tupac's mother. So she's saying, as far as the leadership of the Black Panther Party in the Bronx, Zayd and Afeni was the only two that I respected. He would laugh at my Robert Bay jokes. And she had a run-in with one of the other leaders, and that's another story. It's not important. But he never once said a disparaging word about any of the other comrades. I also respected him because he refused to become part of the macho cult that was an official body that was an official body in the Black Panther Party. He never voted on issues or took a position just to be one of the boys. When brothers made an unprincipled attack on sisters, Zayd refused to participate. Whenever we hooked up for a meeting at somebody's house, he was the first to volunteer to cook dinner, or if dinner was already cooked, the first to roll up his sleeves and wash the dishes. I knew this had to be especially hard for him because he was small and his masculinity was always being challenged in some way by the more backward, muscle-headed men in the party. I mention this because we still, in spite of everything that the Prophet ﷺ came with, we actually still see this in Islam, in the Muslim community. You know, in this, a lot of times this stuff comes up because we're not really in community no more. People don't go to Masjid no more, whatever. So a lot of us can't even imagine where this could take place in a Muslim community. But some of us have been Muslim long enough to remember when people actually used to come to the Masjid and used to like actually care about the Muslim community. And a lot of times this stuff comes out when, for example, you're doing marriage counseling, right? A lot of times the brother, the husband that's getting counseling, he expects, he has in his mind, in his heart, that I know the Imam going to agree with me because, you know, we boys, you know, this is a man thing, right? He could be dead wrong. And if you mention it and correct him, he's actually offended. Like, man, you supposed to take my side. Let me ask you a question, the Imams. Have y'all ever experienced that? Imam Faheem said yes. Imam Amin.
Yeah, they don't speak to me to this day, man.
What was the question, Imam? I'm sorry.
That sometimes brothers expect you to arbitrate in their favor just because you a brother and he a brother. He could be dead wrong.
Nah, I don't experience. They know already. I'm on the brothers on the minbar and everything. Brothers to me act like women. So, nah, I don't get that. They be like, man, he gonna take the sister side all the time. No, it's not that. I just want you to act like a man. Right?
So the mentality still exists in the Muslim community. And sisters that have been around long enough or old enough and been in communities, they got stories. A lot of times they feel like the masjid is the boys' club. Those older sisters. I don't know if any younger sisters can make that claim because nobody go to masjid no more, right? So.
Hey, Imam, can I share something with you real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just laughing at Imam Faheem's title when he was saying, what formed Assata Shakur? You know, the way I think was formed in the Ansars. My ideal of Muslim manhood is very radical as what we see today, right? Because it was formed like a man would sacrifice everything for the mission. And we don't see that no more. We see that from a lot of our women, because I'm telling you, if Black Muslim men would just stand up and be men, you're not a joker, be home, I'm the Imam of this house. Why don't you be the Imam in the masjid? How about that? Right? You know, you get that kind of, I'm the Imam, you know, I'm the Imam in the house, and you're telling the wife, you know, don't be listening to nobody tell my business. Well, why don't you be that same Imam, that leader, in the front row in the masjid? Right? Let me see you do that same manhood you talking when there's other men in the line. But we don't find that, you know. So I'm kind of hard on that, man. And the Ansars, we used to see, if you wasn't working and pulling your weight, you get beat up. Straight up. I'm not saying we can go to that. I'm not saying it's allowed. But you didn't do your, like, you know how we like, see how we trying to raise the $10? They would bring men in front of the lineup. If you didn't, and it was $100, you ain't make your money, you got a whooping coming. You count on it. They're going to whoop you. You better figure it out or you getting beat down. I'm not promoting beating people down. But what it did produce is the value of a man, right? So even when you're not going to get beat down, you're going to take your role as a man, right? And I think when you look at what Zayd was there, she's talking about, he was a man, not a figure. He was a man. So whatever he had to do for the movement, even if cooking, even if cleaning, even if going to do whatever needed to be done, he was in the front row. We need those kind of men. We need kind of men that don't make excuses. Like, that get the job done. Do what you got to do, right? Yeah. We need those kind of men. We don't got those kind of men. We got the kind of men, if it go wrong, they're going to tell on you, right? Telling you. Because they are so attached to the dunya, unfortunately, and it's far too many men like that. That's why the immigrants would disrespect you. That's why they come in the masjid and feel that they be leading, and they do it because they don't see men. You know what I mean? But when the black man, the black Muslim man was a black man, number one, and a Muslim, he had a different type of nature. Nah, you ain't doing that. And I'm telling you, still to this day, and I'm telling you firsthand, y'all been in masjids like that, right? When black Muslim men are men and Muslim, is a whole different level of respect. They might get away from you because they don't like you, but there will be no disrespect, right? Because there's always, with men, when men are together, there's always the chance that this thing might go another way. When men are face to face, like, it sound great, keep it up, right? This may go south quick, because that's the nature of men. Because men are like lions. And I remember our sheikh, he said, I like lions, you know? And I think we need to restore that, you know, futua. We need some real training of black Muslim men, because black Muslim men are not like others. When we actually be who we are, we're not like others. We're not this passive group, you know, who just sings praises of the prophet with no real struggle. That ain't us. When we are us. Now, when we've been tamed and made to be other than us, that's something different. May Allah restore manhood to the black community.
Amin, Amin, Amin. Alhamdulillah. Man, Faheem, you want to add before I go to the next slide?
Yeah, somebody need to ask whoop. I think it's gonna go down sooner or later. Sooner than later.
But guess what? When Mr. Charlie come and you don't fall in line, that's just what he's gonna do. Count on it.
So this is from page 225. So now she's in the Black Panther Party and she has some criticisms. A lot of us going to be able to relate to this. She says, politically, I was not at all happy with the direction of the party. Huey, if you don't know, Huey P. Newton was the leader of the Black Panthers. Huey went on a nationwide tour advancing his new theory of intercommunality. The essence of the theory was that imperialism had reached such a degree that sovereign borders were no longer, and I have to go to the next slide, were no longer recognized, and that oppressed nations no longer existed. Only oppressed communities within and outside of the United States. The problem was that somebody had forgotten to tell these oppressed communities that they were no longer nations. Even worse, almost no one understood Huey's long speeches explaining intercommunalism. Huey Newton was not what you would call a good speaker. In fact, he had a kind of high-pitched, monotonous voice and his rambling for 3 hours about the negation of the negation was sheer disaster. People walked out in droves. Instead of criticizing what was happening, most of the party members defended it. When I said that Huey needed speaking lessons, they jumped down my throat. When Huey changed his title from defense minister to the ridiculous sounding supreme commander, and then to the even more ridiculous sounding supreme servant, damn near nobody said a word. That was one of the big problems in the party. Criticism and self-criticism were not encouraged. And the little that was given often was not taken seriously. Constructive criticism and self-criticism are extremely important for any revolutionary organization. Without them, people tend to drown in their mistakes, not learn from them. There's a lot to unpack there. The first part that I want to comment on what we just read is that because a lot of people, once, like I said earlier, a lot of people that don't know anything about the Black Panthers, they just think they was, just some ignorant thugs with guns. And they don't realize that a lot of them were highly educated, including the leadership, like Huey P. Newton. And sometimes being intelligent, sometimes you can get a little bit too intelligent and too deep that people don't know what you're talking about, right? Intercommunalism, right? So you so deep that nobody know what you're talking about. And a lot of times, especially in the Muslim community, because knowledge is something that is encouraged. And sometimes we get so deep. Like, for example, I'll give you a practical example. I know of certain people who have a high level of learning in their particular field. And they want to teach people, which is good. And they want to teach people these high level books. And I'm like, the people that you're reaching out to, they haven't even learned the basic book check. Why you advertise these high level books? And then you have people actually taking those classes and paying the fee to take the class. And it's like, yeah, I got an ijaza in this mention of such and such book. All right, for real? But you didn't study none of the little books under that, right? I'm like, subhanAllah. And so you reach this high level of knowledge in Islam, and that's good for you personally. But what about the rest of us who don't even recognize that you need to learn from books and reliable teachers yet? And you advertising these high-level books. How about the basic books? Like some of us, we floating out in the stratosphere Islamically, like Huey P. Newton was doing there with intercommunalism and the negation of the negation, right? Right? Some of us are like that Islamically. We way up there. And we like, yeah, Sheikh. Y'all understand? Yeah, we understand. Repeat it back to me. But what she's criticizing, which I'm going to move on to the next part, is that when somebody had the nerve to say something about it, like, yo, nobody know what you're talking about, man. Can you tone it down a little bit? And maybe you should teach some speaking classes or let somebody else do the speech, right? They jump down her throat. Because with our people, a lot of times once we follow a leader, even though we don't say this, we treat him like he's the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's ma'soom. He can't make any mistakes. And if you correcting him, your correction is wrong. And he can't be doing anything wrong because he's all of that. He's like the Prophet, even though we're not going to say that as Muslims, because obviously that goes against our belief. But the way we feel and the way we act, we're treating that person just like the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He can't make no mistakes. He can't be criticized. And this is a mistake. Of course, and this is us. We usually fall to either, when it comes to criticism of our leaders, We go to one extreme or the next. We either think all criticism is bad and we attack the criticizer, or we make it our job to criticize, and we ain't going to do it with no adab and mannerism, and we're going to do it publicly, and we're going to try to embarrass them with the criticism. This is how we do the leaders. It's either one or the other, nothing in the middle. Matter of fact, I'm not going to pull him to the side. I'm not going to inbox him. I'm not going to text him. I'm going to wait till he's live in the class, and I'm going to try to embarrass him. In fact, I'm going to troll him. I'm going to talk real disrespectful to him. That's the other extreme. Or, how dare you talk about it? But what he's saying is correct. Nah, he's just attacking. No, maybe he's giving some criticism. And so we have to watch out for that. And the titles, we got that. We got that. Somebody could be a sheikh among us and don't even know his far'ain. It's individual obligation. He's sheikh. If really he's a sheikh, yeah. He don't even know how to make wudu right, but he's a sheikh. Or like Imam Faheem, Imam Amin mentioned on his live, he don't even know how to end the prayer properly. Salamun alaikum. No assalamu alaikum, nothing. Right? Right? He's a sheikh though. Or he gave a good speech. We don't know what he's talking about. He mixing apples with oranges, and he mixing both of them with salad, right? He just all messed up. He all over the place. But he's a sheikh. He's this or that. All these lofty titles and little work. See, at least they was working and had the titles. We're not putting in no work, and we got the titles. Everybody's a sheikh. Everybody's an imam. You don't have no masjid, no followers. You just the imam on Facebook. You got that's your name on Facebook. Imam such and such. Who's the dude who runs Facebook? Zuckerberg. If Zuckerberg shut it down, you wouldn't even be imam no more. Your imamate is only on Facebook. If they shut Facebook down, you ain't imam no more because you ain't got no masjid. You ain't nobody follow you. You don't even exist without this social media platform. No Facebook, no imamate, right? All these titles. We good with titles, black folks. SubhanAllah. So Imam Faheem, you have anything you want to comment on with regards to that clip, that quote?
Yes, if I may retract my intestinal fluids for a moment and get down to the flatulation, I mean the menstruation of the matter. No,
Imam Amin, I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, I heard. You know, I'm laughing because when you think about all of that, you go back to Living Color, you know, and they have, you know, we have seen our men, especially when they get leadership, because of their being inadequate, they start making stuff to seem adequate instead of taking care of the foundations. And I would say this for us, really, you know, listen, all these things are by design, right? So that we can be subjugated. Most of us, if we be honest, were never even told that we had to learn basics. We don't even know what basics are in Islam. Just like in our school systems, that you have a person that gets all the way to the college level and realize this whole year he doesn't even have basic, skills of, math and language and those things. He was lacking. And when it's time to enter the college, he got to take beginner classes, prep classes in college just to start the school. And this is happening us with Islam. Because the way they taught us Islam is all incorrect, and they make it a norm. It's going to get worse. So I think one of the things that we have to do, and it's going to take slow. We got to get some guts to say no to slavery in any form, subjugation in any form, and not with arrogance. No. We got to become a people, number one. The biggest problem is we don't believe we are people. We've been taught it's not permissible to be a people, only for others, not for you. You only can serve people. You can never be a people. And I want to say this. This is going to be a long round table if I keep talking. Because all these matters, we need to talk about them because we're still living it, just in a different form, right? It's essential that, remember I was asking you, Imam, what we going to bring out of this? As I'm listening to it, I'm just like, there's a lot in this, like you said. There's a lot to unpack. How many times we saw a guy on a minbar giving a duality of creation khutbah? He ain't never learned, he's just going. And I remember telling my wife the other day, I was like, yeah, that was a great speech, but it was invalid. Went to all 4 schools. He was dropping it, but everybody missed their Jumu'ah because everybody better pray Dhuhr or they in trouble on the day of judgment. See, he never learned the rules, right? And that's normal. How do we change that? Because our enemies, they want us to think there is no rules. You can just make it up. They're not making it up. They're just telling you that. Their whole system, they got schools, they got universities, they producing judges. Let me give you an example. Think of all the graduates from the University of Medina that are African Americans. Give me any of them who have become authoritative positions in Saudi Arabia, in the judgeship, real sheikh in the Masjid, leading, any of that. Think about it. Not a one. Right? And just take one individual that was an American, but non-African American. Look how they promoted him, and take the rest of the African Americans and see what they're doing right now. They're all in the city, in the inner city, struggling or begging some immigrant community, being a servant to some board of directors or some person with money and a servant position. None of them are real leaders, except that they struggling with people because everyone else rejected them. Think about it. Think about it. You don't think that's a design there? Just observe what they're doing. They ain't running nothing. They're not running nothing. But if you think of all of those, all of them went to the same school. Their sheikhs, the leaders, the one who's kicking people off the minhaj, all of them went to the same school, and they're leaders. All of you, followers. You go everywhere else, and even not just to pick on those people, even go to the black Ahl Sunnah, same stuff. Same stuff. They're even being employed by somebody else, struggling In their own black community, very few doing that. But if there are some, and they ain't leading nothing when it comes to others. You might be a guest speaker, you might be the honored sheikh for the event, but you ain't running nothing. Think about that. And that's when she's talking about, you know, our education ain't leading us to freedom. It's not. And then you talking about it's been like that for 50 years, since the 70s. If you remember the Sunni group that, you know, we went through some with, and one of the things I was pounding them on was no black leadership. Still to this day, after all that, still no real black leadership. Not a drop, right? What you can do is be told what to do. You ain't running nothing. As if you incapable, and we still never go build our own. And we still never go build our own. Because we're taught, well, everyone else, because since you can't be in leadership, that means somebody's in leadership. Who is it? It doesn't reflect you. So since they have the right to be in leadership, which is fine, why don't you have the same right and ambition for leadership of your people? Because they taught you not a people. And you accepted that. And that's why a lot of people, they don't want no parts of this Black Imams Roundtable, because we put something in front that is like, oh, black. That's not an exclusion. That's a real inclusion. You know what is including? Us, who have always been excluded. They're excluding, yeah. We're excluding anyone who's not including us. And we're including us deliberately, intentionally. And you shouldn't have a problem with it, because the whole world includes them and excludes us. So we got to get to a point where we start to say, ho, 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 deliberately, this is our movement. We fight for everyone's cause except our own. And I'm not saying we shouldn't fight for others' causes, because anytime someone's being oppressed or treated unjustly, we should have a desire to remove that. But shouldn't we have the desire to remove it from ourselves? If we're ambitious to remove it from everyone else, which is rightfully so, what about us? This whole thing of the struggle and liberation ain't something of the past. We're living it right now. And I'm hoping through these dialogues, and we need many more, that we just realize we have to do it. We have to do it. And not be shy about it. It is our God-given right that we do it, right? It's a must. It is the most Islamic thing we can do in our present time. I honestly believe that. It is the most Islamic thing we can do in the world today, is to rise up as a people that's obedient to Allah and His Messenger with some dignity and honor as a people. I mean, I can't see nothing else. Because everything else we already do, but it hasn't liberated us. It hasn't. And if you look, even when all of our great leaders who had some courage, they found a way to dismiss them in our eyes. They was already dismissed in their eyes. How can I dismiss them in your eyes? How can I find a way that you won't even talk about them? You don't even want to remember them. And you only remember the images we put in front of you, right? And this is an open dialogue. Got some Negroes talking about, I'm living in Saudi Arabia. What the hell are you living in Saudi Arabia for? With all the crap we got going on and you're supposed to be knowledgeable. Come on, bro. That means you already think that I'm incapable. So I gotta go live where someone else has built something for them. And I feel safe under their leadership. That's a slave's mentality. And you watching the same thing you're witnessing with their van going off. The same thing you running from, you watching it. Because everything we ran from is right there. It's just the van goes off. While we neglect our very people on the ground, from where we come from. Yeah, man, we need a wake-up call. Okay.
Next slide. This is from page 232. So I didn't want to put it there because it's only a little bit. She's talking about, so let me, at one time it was so hectic for people that were involved in the struggle. Like the Black Panther Party had broken up or divided. It was East Coast versus West Coast. And then there's something else that's not mentioned here. All of these groups, or most of these groups, and all of the key individuals in a different struggle, in the different organizations in the struggle, many of them have become part of the Republic of New Africa. So Black Panthers was part of it and all of that. And that's a whole nother discussion, right? And COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program, was in effect. But at real time for them, when it was going on, they didn't know it was happening. They learned about it later, right? So it says, I'm starting from the page before, nobody could possibly have known that the FBI had sent a phony letter to Eldridge Cleaver in Algiers, signed, quote unquote, by the Panther 21. The Panther 21 were those Black Panthers, like Afina Shakur, who was framed and on trial, but they accused him of trying to blow up something. It was a jumped up charge. So when this was going on, some of them got out on bail. The Black Panthers who were free and was trying to raise money for the others. There's a lot going on. Meanwhile, there's division happening, right? So she's saying that the phony letter to Eldridge Cleaver in Algiers signed by the Panther 21 criticizing Huey Newton's leadership. No one could have known that the FBI had sent a letter to Huey's brother saying that the New York Panthers were plotting to kill him. No one could have known that the FBI's COINTELPRO was attempting to destroy the Black Panther Party in particular and the Black Liberation Movement in general, using divide and conquer tactics. The FBI's COINTEL program consisted of turning members of organizations against each other, pitting one Black organization against another. Huey ended up suspending Set and Dhoruba from the party, branded them as enemies of the people, and caused them to go into hiding in fear for their very lives. No one had the slightest idea that this whole scenario was carefully manipulated and orchestrated by the FBI. When they brought the Black Panther newspaper to the office, the one that branded Dhoruba, Set, and Set's wife, Connie Matthews Tabor, as enemies of the people, I refused to sell it and attacked it as an outright lie. I had been so outspoken about my criticisms that I knew it was just a matter of time before I too would be expelled. Sick and disgusted, I decided it was time for me to leave the party. So a few comments I want to make about that quote. See, again, this is the early 70s. They didn't have the levels of communication that we have. So if you're living in a different city or a different state or in a different country, and then you don't want to talk on the phone because you know they're listening. And I didn't read it earlier, but one time Assata, when I read the quote about Huey P. Newton's speaking abilities that she made, if I would have read the next paragraph, she was talking about how she tried to brush up her speaking abilities. And so she had a tape recorder. Once again, this is no cell phones, whatever, big old bulky tape recorder with a corded microphone, right? And so she said that she was like speaking into it and saying blah, 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 blah. And then her phone rang, the house phone. And then she picked it up and the voice said, "Stop talking to yourself, Joanne," right? And hung up, right? So she had known that they had bugged her house. So she had left and just tried to find someplace privately that they that where she can, gather her thoughts. But the point that I want to emphasize here, and I think because if you know this history, you know that a lot of them got killed, and not by the so-called pigs, by each other because of this. They made them think that they was enemies to each other. And so you know how they say now, it's on site. A lot of us, we just talk. We be like, it's on site. And then like when Imam Faheem catch you, it's like, oh, assalamu alaikum, Imam, right? But online, it's on site. Right? Those brothers was really about it. So on site meant on site. And a lot of people got killed, not knowing that this stuff is being instigated. And I think that's one of the things that save us, because a lot of us are just talk. We're not really built like that, right? So we talk trash, we talk about each other, right? But we ain't gonna do nothing. But the dangerous thing about it is that we talk about each other, but we won't talk to each other. And now it's so easy to talk to each other, right? We got text messages, inbox, WhatsApp. I can on and on and on. There's apps I don't even know about where you can communicate. You can even communicate on video games now. That's how young people communicate. They play the video game and communicate with each other. So we have an unlimited way of communicating with each other. But when we have differences, all of a sudden, I don't want to communicate. No, you need to communicate. They didn't have the luxury of communication like we had. Like Eldridge Cleaver, he's in Algeria. So any way that you communicate with someone, they can always intercept it. And they did. So, a lot of times we talk about divide and conquer, and then we say, oh man, we doing the same thing in the Muslim community. And like us, this platform, this collective right here, the Black Imams Roundtable, we always say, we're ready to talk. A lot of you in the past have said, why don't you talk? Why don't you talk to this? Why don't you talk to this one? Why don't you talk to that one? We open to talk. It's they who don't want to talk. And that's dangerous. And that's very dangerous. But I said that the flip side, alhamdulillah, this generation ain't really built like that. So half the time ain't not really to worry about anyway. They just talking, right? But not everybody's like that. There's still some people now that's really about it. And a lot of people that talk trash, a lot of times what they're really hoping is that somebody that's with them that's really about that life will take the cue and act, so they ain't gotta do nothing. That's just to let y'all know, just in case. So there's a lot of y'all leaders, right? The ones, not y'all that's common, the ones that's listening secretly. A lot of times they saying what they saying because they hoping that you crash out and do a dummy move, right? Because they ain't gonna do nothing. I just want to let y'all know that.
What's that guy from the guy that was on the stand doing all the ratting or fake ratting or whatever the heck he was doing from Atlanta? Imam Faheem, Little Willie, what's his name?
Was a young thug?
Yeah, who was the guy that was tripping out on the stand? Remember, he ratted. He was saying, "I'm gonna tell him get out of trouble with it." What's his name?
I forget.
Hey, you the rap dude. You're supposed to know this stuff.
That stuff ain't rap, man.
I think his name is Little Willie or something. I don't know, whatever his name is. And I saw him on a Woody. He said, he said, yo, you know, I don't know why they better stop playing with me. I've been in those situations. I'm not nothing to play with. I will do what I gotta do and go home and sleep and not think nothing about it. He says, don't think I'm that kind of guy. You got those kind of guys too, Imam Naeem. They talking and walking.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Do y'all have anything y'all want to
add? And go and tell the police when you after they finish so they can get you. So there are a lot of variables to that. You know what I think about Imam Naeem? I don't believe none of us don't want to talk to each other. I believe far too many of us are afraid to talk to each other because our handlers will be disappointed with us. That's what I believe. Too many of us have handlers from others. So I want to talk to you, but if I get caught talking to you, I'm done. And I haven't manned up enough to take that.
You just reminded me of something. Like one brother I know, he has a handler, right? One of our family members, if you're listening, don't identify yourself, right? But he called me one day, right? He says, you know, brother such and such that you know? I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah. He called him in the office, closed the doors of the quiet private 101. Man, if you talk to Imam Naeem, tell him I said Assalamu alaikum, man. I really like what he's doing, what the Black Imams Roundtable is doing, man. But don't tell nobody I told you, though. I'm not supposed to be telling you.
That's why I think the Black Imams Roundtable is important, because a lot of us, you know, we want to do what we're doing. We just don't got the dignity and courage to do it. But at the heart level, we there. But listen, I got guys who come by me all the time. They'll come by the masjid, they'll sit in there, and like I don't pay attention that you don't come to the masjid. This is a sneak joint. You want to come in, you want to kick, so I'm making shake, so I'm making Imam. I'm just looking. And I'm like, you know, I'm cool with it. But I realize it's not really you. You just don't got the courage to stand up. Because the peer pressure from others, because it's not from your people, because your people servants to others. So like the brothers are going to knock me up. The brothers are servants, right? And you know it, and the brothers know it. But they haven't, you know, everybody worry about getting canceled by someone who already canceled your whole tribe, your whole people's canceled. And you worry about individually getting canceled. You know, man, they're going to kick me off the minhaj. And kick you off the minhaj. Kick your whole nation off the minhaj. You only can be on the minhaj as a servant class. That's it. Because other than that, you could actually, you know, they used to say in the game, in that other world, you know, don't send no messenger boy to me. Don't send no messenger boy. If he can't call a shot, send the one who can call a shot. Don't send the messenger boy. There was one brother, he made me lose it. And I felt bad, but, you know, we are human. He was supposed to come on a round table. And he made a commitment to come on a round table. He was all geared up. Yeah, we're going to talk about these issues. He was really going to refute us too on some issues. I said, you're welcome. Long as it's us talking, you're welcome. I get a call He like, oh, I'm not coming. I'm like, why not? You was just all motivated. He got a call from up top that he can't come. He ain't know, but I went up top. Talked to the person up top. Like, let him come. Listen, is a grown man in his own country. I'm talking to somebody else from another country to tell him, let him talk. And then we had a further talk, and he was kind of talking a little reckless. And my YN came out. I was like, you. I described him with some words that I shouldn't have described, and he was shocked. You know, I'm like, I had no respect for that, though. My point was, be a man. You realize ain't no one coming, and you the black man, and you could come, and somebody tell you no, and they not coming. So what is this speaking for us? Right? So I really say, listen, forget likes, forgetting all that. We need these conversations. Us need to have them, not referring to nobody else. Me, you, right? We can have it. And we've been trying to have these conversations. And many of us that watch know we've been, listen, we ain't running from no real discussion because we need it. Even if we wrong, we need you to correct us. But you gotta be willing to get corrected to do that, right? So it's easy to say, oh, they arrogant. Oh, they got that street stuff. Oh, ain't nobody did nobody even punched you in the mouth. So where you get street stuff from? Nobody pistol whipped you. Nobody did none of that. Just words. We talking, right? Imam Faheem, stop it. Oh my goodness. No, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, we do need to have this, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We do. At the heart level, all of us tired of being servants and oppressed people, man. We want freedom, justice, and equality. We need that. And anything's in the way of that, we need to collectively address that. But you got to stop being a servant yourself. You got to realize that you a free man and you have a right to speak on behalf of your people. Let me give you an example. Can I ask you a question? I'm going to give you a scenario quickly. Imam Naeem, do I got time for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. We're in a multicultural community, right? It's all different races, different nationalities, different ethnicities. We all in one Muslim community. We all support it. The leadership all represents of one ethnicity who's making decisions, right? All of us went to the same school. All of us studied. The leader of that, only his people of his ethnicity always be the leader even after 30 years. That your children and grandchildren look at his children and grandchildren as the leader and they never see themselves as a leader. Do y'all find that problematic? It's a question. Would you find that problematic?
Of course.
Extremely.
That's like slavery. Like you was born a slave. You can't get no freedom.
Do you realize how much that happens in our community? And listen, this is real. I'm not talking about like I'm not pointing, but this is real situations. And we don't see nothing wrong with it. Your daddy was my sheikh, you my sheikh, your son gonna be my sheikh, maybe even your daughter gonna be my sheikh. And they're gonna be the sheikh of my kids, my grandkids, and my kids are never gonna be the sheikh. And we'll stay in that position. And there's some deep stuff. Think about that. And it's just fine. And if you ever even think about breaking that, you're going against the grain. Not only you can't break it, you never ascend to leadership, and you better not go start your own thing to be a leader, to set some leadership for your people. And you always got to ask for permission when it's ever for your people. You know that goes on a lot in our communities? A whole lot. Across the board. Yeah, that's troublesome. But it's a lot of that going on. You an employee, your children gonna be employees, and you never gonna be in a position of change. And that's how Mr. Charlie set it up. He taught his cousins to set it up like that. And Islam hasn't changed the mindset of people when it comes to that. They still maintain it. When Islam should be an intentional change of injustice. As a Muslim, you should say, no longer this. You're going to be the sheikh, and we're going to facilitate that for you. We're going to make that change, and we're going to surrender to it. That's what Islam should teach you. But the other thing, it's hard for someone even to be made to feel like that's what they should do when you surrender to that position yourself. I just wanted to share that, Imam.
Alhamdulillah.
What are we going to do about it, though? That's my question. Are we going to make a change? We are. We're making it, but it needs more support and more engagement.
Okay, this is the last slide. This is page 247. So Stanley Cohen was her lawyer. So now she's incarcerated now. She's preparing for her trial on the murder of the state trooper. Stanley Cohen came to see me. He was excited and upbeat. His good news was that he had found an investigator, an old friend of his who owed him a favor. His friend had contacts with the New Jersey State Police and thought they might be able to come up with some information on Harper, the police officer who was the main witness. He was also making progress in finding a forensic chemist. We both felt that at least some of the scientific reports had been fudged by the New Jersey State Troopers. We talked about this and a million things before the visit ended. He was so positive. He said he had a plan, something he wanted to check out, but he didn't want to discuss it and raise my hopes prematurely. That was the last time I saw Cohen, Stanley Cohen. And the next paragraph talks about that he mysteriously died of natural causes, right? And the implication is that he was killed, but it's not been proven. The reason why I quote that is because when you're dealing with an enemy who makes the rules, don't be surprised when they break the rules that they themselves have made. See, a lot of times you think that they're going to be playing fair. If they was playing fair, you wouldn't be in this position in the first place. That's why I always say when something crazy happens, and a lot of us, we act surprised. I'm surprised that you're surprised that this stuff is happening. Like, when is this stuff going to happen? How many times does it have to happen for you not to be surprised? So that was the last slide that I want to mention. And because a lot of us, I think we know we're in la la land, right? When your enemy, whether it be, and like we've been going back and forth, like Black people in general and us Black Muslims within the Muslim community, right? The same thing applies. All of these complaints of injustice and inequality that Black Muslims make against the general non-Black Muslim community, if they were playing by the rules, we wouldn't have a complaint, right? Because Islam itself don't condone nothing that they're saying. We can go on forever for a long time with a lot of proofs against the treatment that we receive from them. They're not playing by it. They don't care nothing about no rules. And a lot of times for them, Islam is cultural. See, you came into Islam, you following the rules. For them, it's just some cultural stuff. The rules are only for you. And sometimes the rules are only for you is packaged to you in such a way to prevent you from criticizing them. So I said I wanted to mention one thing about Assata's child. How many of you can take the slideshow down?
Okay.
How many of y'all have this book? After you get Assata's book, you need this book. The War Before, the true life story of becoming a Black Panther, keeping the faith in prison, and fighting for those left behind by Safiya Bukhari. I mention this because you need to read this book. Get Assata's book, read this. She definitely became a Muslim. I used to listen to her on the radio on WBAI when I still lived in New York. But she's passed now. But one of the things that she mentions, well, she's not mentioning it. They put at the end of the book a transcript of an interview that she did with someone else who goes back to those days with Assata. And so the whole interview is about Assata, right? So that's interesting. But that she mentioned something else, because like her thing was really, talking about Safiya Bukhari, was a lot of them were still in prison, and a lot of them are still in prison now. They've been in prison late 60s and 70s, and they still in prison right now, 2025. For stuff, a lot of times the stuff they didn't do. This is deep. So she mentions the story of Kamau, who is the father of Assata's daughter. And how back in those days, in the early 70s, they tried to frame him, I think, for a murder of a police officer as well. And he wasn't ever convicted on it. No problem. But he ended up going to jail for something else and coming out. And he went to New York, started working, I think, in transit. And then decades later, because he was real sick. He was real sick. He had all of these sicknesses and stuff. And so he had a wife or a girlfriend, I don't know. But his sickness went into remission, and he got better. But the woman who he was with didn't want him no more. And so she tried to say that, oh, he was abusive to her. Just making up stuff. Tried to say that he was abusive to her. That didn't stick. And then she lied on him and said he molested my daughter. The reason why she mentions this, because she's showing how they operate. If they want you, and they know you got support by the people, community support, one of the ways they get you is by destroying your reputation. So now they put it all in the newspaper. Former Black Panther indicted or arrested for molesting stepdaughter. That charge didn't stick. But they delayed the process long enough for them to get an indictment on a 30-year-old murder. He beat the trial already. But all of a sudden they got new witnesses and they remember stuff now after 30 years. So he, after being free all that time, he got extradited, got convicted, and he in jail. I don't know if he's still in jail now, 2025, but as of the writing of that book, he was still in jail. So the point is, in this case, did the FBI set him up? No. But they took advantage of an opportunity, a domestic opportunity. And that's why a lot of times I be trying to tell people, don't just marry anybody. We know you lonely, we know you desperate, and you know all that kind of stuff, man. But sometimes you can marry somebody and they'll bring about your destruction. How you gonna marry somebody and she know you come from the Black Panthers and all that stuff, and she tried to use that stuff? She was saying, oh, he got guns in the house. I think you're gonna use them on me, right? None of that stuff stuck. But the one thing, Kamal Siddiqui, but one of the things that did stick was that, oh, he molested my daughter. The charge didn't stick, but the people, you know how we are. Nah, you mess with children, nah, we ain't whatever happened to you, happened to you. Kwame said he's still in jail, good brother, subhanAllah. He was free all them years, but all of a sudden, like she says in that portion of the book, she said, people memory get weaker after years. It don't get stronger, right? So how all of a sudden you remember stuff now, right? So they just availed themselves of the opportunity. We didn't get them before. We got them now, right? And it's the same thing with Imam Jamil Amin. May Allah protect and preserve him and cure him. Some people said that was in the courtroom said that when they got the conviction on him, the prosecutor or the judge, I forget, said, oh, we finally got him. Even though he ain't do what they got him for, even somebody later came and admitted to it. He didn't even fit the description of the sheriff deputy. He was supposed to have got wounded by the officer when they caught Imam Jamil. You know, no bullet wounds. Looks nothing like the person that they say they got in the shootout with. But they wanted him for that long time ago. So a lot of times we forget we have a short memory span. They don't. They'll use anything to get you. If they feel like they want you and you get away, don't think like, you know, they forget about it or they took that loss. They don't take losses like that. They'll come after you even if it's 30 years later. Why do you think Assata Shakur was on the most wanted list to the day she died? Your president. Some of y'all was dancing in the street. Barack Obama put her on the FBI's most wanted list and even raised the bounty on her. Yo, black friend Obama. Some of y'all was dancing in the street. No, you got imams dancing in the street like you go like the Mujaddid arrived. I'm finished. But that's what I wanted to mention in the slides, and I hope it was some benefit, and I hope we can see how her struggle, her life, all of that stuff is still happening. It's just different names. It looks a little different. It's a little more technologically sophisticated, but the same stuff's still happening. So I hope it was beneficial.
You know, I see we got some guests, right? And I'm gonna be nice, but the guest is a point that I was making. We all want the same thing. We do. But others have ensured that we don't work together. Same concept, right? And then they knock all of us off, right? Listen, people may have a problem with our stance on the Black Imams Roundtable. But if you get deep down to it, they're defending someone else other than Black people. The position of them, the mindset of them, the religious persuasion, understanding, is other than us examining the religious texts and us having a discussion among us. They are speaking often in the voice of the subjugator, the oppressor. If they could get out of that mode and just have a talk, us, I'm telling you, it'll look different. It'll look totally different. It would be a game changer. Like, you know, just stop talking like a Saudi. Stop talking with the mind of a Saudi. Talk with the mind of the Black man you are, with Islam. But talk from that mindset. It'll be a total different conversation. But when we're defending someone else's doctrine based on someone else's interpretation, someone else's dictates, someone else's pamphlets, we'll never sit down and have a real conversation. I want us to think about that. So I'm talking to us in a way, and listen, we never running from a conversation, right? But I say this, let us have this conversation ourselves in our voice, with our understanding, with our background, our examination of the reality. You know that thing that she mentioned, that you have to have this concept of looking at things the way they really are. We got to be honest, right? We still living in the mentality that Alhaj Malik Shabazz was against. We sick, boss. We sick, boss. We still have that mind. And you know how they do it? The Mashiach. You know, the kibar of the ulama. Who made them the kibar of the ulama? Who did that? Who gave them such title? That you accepted it. Who gave them that title? Why you don't know nobody look like you that's kibar ulama?
Good morning, man. Have a spritzer, will you?
I know, like, you know what I mean? Like, because that's the thing that's preventing you from talking. The kibar ulama. They interpret the religion in a way where you can't even talk to your people. And my thing is this. As long as we play these silly games, we never going nowhere as a people, right? We never going nowhere. As long as we play these silly games, we never going nowhere. We're going to repeat this stuff. And I've been around long enough, and some of us been around long enough to know what generations look like of playing these games. Servitude, subjugation, no critical thinking, no collective cooperation. We've been watching this stuff for 40, 50 years. Some of our elders, 70 years. It's the same stuff. And everyone moving us around like we a little ball on the field, just dumb Negroes. And we accept it. We line up to be in servitude to others. It's sad, man. So we talking about all this Black history and Black thing and you know, the struggle and the brothers and the movement, and you Negroes is chumps when it comes to really standing up for yourself. But you talking all this nonsense. And I say it like that because inside it burns. What I know what we could do if we got over that. If we actually were men, what we could do. Collectively, I'm talking about. Maybe individually, we ain't that strong because it's 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4, a little small group here, a little small group here. We all in the same boat. And they've strategically made us say, hey, you can't do it. Don't come. Don't join your people. And my thing is, listen, you know, I'm telling you, these people don't care about you, man. They don't. They will get rid of us and keep it moving. So being afraid to really, really stand together and sacrifice don't make a damn difference. You're going to die anyway. That's reality. Is it a slow death or a quick death? Or maybe you could work together to avoid death altogether. Any of y'all ever been in a riot in the university? Like a live riot? You, Imam, Faheem? Goon squad coming, ready to take you out. At that moment, you know all bets is off, right?
Yeah.
All bets is off.
It's over. They're coming to pull you out with your drawers on.
At that moment, you got a choice to make, right? Either you going down, or you going to go down on your knees or standing. You're still going down, right? You got a choice to make. You're going down. They outnumbered you, you done. But are you going to let them humiliate you in the same process? That's the question you got to ask yourself, right? And maybe if you take a stand, they might respect you and might not do it again, right? Now, you're going to pay a price for that. You know that, right? You definitely going to pay a price. But sometimes it's worth paying that price. I think we got to the point we afraid to pay a price. And they make examples to keep that fear there. So every one of these leaders who get enough guts, we're going to wax them, right? And then we'll justify why they got waxed. Oh, he was this, he was a cult leader, it's all the same thing, right? But the thing for us is to realize, listen, it ain't about us. We got generations of us to come. At somewhere, we got to get it together. Because we watching all of our elders, right? We watching all of our elders just get wiped away. Slowly but surely. Like it or not, we're the next generation, and we're elders, like it or not, right? Because we sit around, we watch all of our elders. Take our elders across the board. Is there really a healthy level of real followership from us and respect from them? No. We like them, we love them, but we ain't following them. And that's because of the mentality that they put in us about them. They're not knowledgeable enough. They don't know nothing. They're not in the sunnah. So we just wipe them out. And if you look, others have made us do that to every single generation. Every single generation. To the point that we don't get nobody that we're going to trust. Nobody we're going to follow. So long as he looks like us, it ain't happening. That's what we got to change. That's something we got to change. And don't feel, and don't let nobody make you feel that because you feel a way about yourself, you doing something haram. No. It's obligatory. Ku anfusakum. Save yourselves. Wa ahlikum. And your families. That is an obligation in the religion. That's the Quran. That's an imperative. We have to do that. Because if you look at, and we know it, we just don't want to have real conversations. Because we don't really want to work. We don't really want to sacrifice. We're too daggone comfortable as a people. Comfortable being servants and slaves and oppressed. We just like the glory of the past to talk about it, but we don't want to do the work. And I say, is the Black Imams Roundtable the only one doing that? Nah. There's others. Bring us together. Let's sit down and have real talks. We're open because obviously none of us by ourselves are getting the job done, even if we're in groups, because we're in a little group. And you take a group of the people, and you take and if you talk about the whole Manna Project, that's an example of what I'm talking about. That whole project is that we refuse to see us as leaders. That's the problem. We can paint it all kinds of ways. The problem is we don't see ourselves as leaders collectively. And that's why every time we try to do something, we always got to get the approval of someone else before we move. And listen, in the meanwhile, and I say this strongly, until we can do that, there needs to be a movement of people who won't bend, that are determined. And that's what I hope from us as imams and this family we've built, that we have to support it into our death. Until we can do that. And we got to be those voices that do the thing that's not comfortable. Right? We have to. Because it ain't an ego thing. Actually, we got to survive through this. And listen, the ego is the thing that can prevent you from doing it. There's nobody we won't talk to. There's no one we won't talk to. There's no one we won't battle with so we can talk to. No one. No one. No one's excluded. We will talk. We will engage. We will debate with anyone to save our people. As long as your heart's there, we're going to disagree. Listen, I don't think Wahhabism is our salvation. I'm telling you straight up. Now, we can have that discussion, right? I think you are a part of our salvation, but that doctrine you carrying, I don't see it. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is not coming to save black people. Not from the Barzakh, not his descendants. It ain't happening. They've been exploiting black people. That's my feeling. Don't get pissed off. Have the discussion. And show me where I'm wrong. Because you a victim of it. But likewise, I haven't seen no one else from another side do that either. I see everyone exploiting us. That's what I see. I see everyone using us as a poster child for their upliftment. And then they throw us a bone. A little bone, just enough so you come back next year. And even if that's your doctrine, so long as you standing on that, and that's your thing, and you can articulate it, and you understand it, man, I can work with it. I can work with you. I can get the job done. We can figure it out because we got a lot more in common besides that. I know you may get mad. I know you may not like it, but let's have that discussion. Ain't nobody afraid. Ain't nobody ill-equipped to handle it either. And sometimes we ill-equipped and we don't want that exposure. That, I ain't as equipped as I thought I was. No one's really challenging those. Because I'm saying we're trying to get liberation, right? Or are you actually saying it ain't about us? But then if it ain't about us, then why are we fighting for every other cause? Because we in our Masjid making dua for other causes. And we always on our platforms making, fighting for other causes, boycotting for other causes, not doing things for other causes. When it comes for us, we don't got none of that work. For our own upliftment, our own empowerment, none of that happens. For me, I'm saying that's a problem. You can see everyone else but yourself. That's a problem. And I'm not saying don't see nobody else, but see yourself. And we're open for dialogue. We're open for debate. We're open for correction. So the Black Imams Roundtable is open for anyone who wants to uplift our people with real conversation. The door is wide open. Anyone who really want to, because we don't have these discussions just to be talking. We really want to change. And those ideas, trust me, might as well be out because trust me, you ain't got no secret. If you got one of these anywhere around, everything you said, they got. So I don't know what you acting like. This ain't the days when if you thought they was talking about Assata Shakur, stop talking to yourself. What the heck you think with all this crap we got going around? They got every move before we making. So I don't think that's it. May Allah help us. All right, we're Imam Naeem running. You don't want no smoke? Akil, where you at? You want some smoke? Naeem got the popcorn.
No, I was chewing. When our brother right here said me and Imam Faheem was chewing too good, so I went on screen so I can chew in peace.
Right. I'm chewing in their face. All right, ain't no more smoke, Imam. Come on, play that commercial. Let's get out of here, man.
I don't got the commercial. It ain't here.
Well,
You do the commercial. We reached the goal, but we should up the goal. The goal should go to 1,000. we have way over 100 people. We should up it because we have work to do. If we serious, we need to pay some of these guys to come have a conversation to me.
You know, one thing we didn't mention here, even though Assata was not guilty of all of those charges that where she beat those charges, people was robbing banks though. It's just she wasn't robbing those banks that they tried to get her for. But you know why they was robbing those banks? To finance their movement.
Yeah, it's haram to rob banks though.
Exactly. Nobody's advocating.
It ain't what
There
you
was
know.
Muslims robbing banks to finance their movement too. And that ain't work. I was in a university with a bunch of comrades who were robbing banks, and that ain't work. So don't tell me Muslims wasn't robbing. Man, I was in there with them. They was robbing banks. That's haram. We can't rob banks.
Muslims still robbing banks for no purpose now.
But the reason why I mention that is because, you know, a lot of times with our people, the support is so dismal that people get desperate and resort to stuff like that. Once again, I'm not saying that we should or are going to do that, but I'm just showing you. Look at all the people the Panthers was helping, feeding children for breakfast, educating people. They're doing all that work. They still had to rob banks to try to support their efforts.
I'll be straight to y'all. You know why? I know we need, the most important we need to support, we need to buy some of our people. We need to buy them back from those who brought them. And listen, that's a Quranic thing, you know. Among those people that is given zakat is people whose faith is weak, that are leaders and influential. You give them from the zakat so that they would come to Islam and bring their people, right? So we ain't gonna take zakat for that because that is a specific thing. But I'm telling you, I'm 100% sure if we could start giving gifts to people to come on and talk, they'd come. I'm telling you, I'm 100. There's a lot of our leaders that do what they do only because we don't support. I know a bunch of them, right? And I ain't gonna name them, but they know I know them. That's why they don't come messing with us, because they know Imam might go off and say some stuff. I'm not getting on live with that dude. You don't know what's gonna come out of his mouth. But you know you a tap dancing Negro, right? You do know that stuff. Nah. But no, seriously. If we really started to just say, listen, because that's how it works. They buy all our people. I know the game, honorarium the deaf. And Joe could be like, man, and they ain't gonna see, listen, they're not gonna talk the talk we talk, because the one who's paying them, the one who's giving the honorarium, going to dismiss them. They'll cancel you quick, right? And if you get canceled, then I'm broke. I'm tapped out. Ain't nobody gonna help me. And they don't got communities, like Imam Naeem said. These ain't real imams. They're imams like in social media and cyberspace. They don't have real communities. Like they don't stand with a community every day. So at least, you know, even if we have poor communities, we have communities, and you do have people who's with you, right? So if you don't have a whole lot of support, you got the support of the people who really support you as the imam. Imagine that influencer, that guy who studied, who don't have a community. Because they always taught us to be independent. So he went overseas as an independent. He came back as an independent, and he's remaining as an independent servant of someone else to keep, right? He's never a part of a community, right? Honorariums?
Yeah, he's a 1099 slave.
Yeah, they run in the thousands. A speaking engagement, thousands. And they laugh at us talking about $500. Ain't no money with all of us. So I'm saying that's how you change the game. You got to be strategic. It's real. So, Kwame, you want to come on and have a few words with us? We can have an extended version, you and Akil.
Yeah, I'm out, cuz.
All right, we welcome y'all. Y'all want to join us? Akil and Kwame, y'all want to join us? I've been waiting to have a talk with both of y'all anyway. So y'all welcome.
There you go, man.
Iman Amin is Iman Amin. I come a brother. Come on, we brothers, man.
You gotta stop it, man.
We brothers, man. We can send y'all the quick link and we can have an extended version. And we could talk about all the elephants in the room. Hey, I'm me, Hawk. You know I'm me. But guess what? I love you. It's all love. That's why I want to have those conversations. And don't have a conversation behind doors when you was having it publicly. Have it publicly.
Would you stop it, man?
Hey, it was there are public discussions. Have the public discussion. Just include me when you have it.
In the words of Lamont Sanford, that's why you're you and I'm me, and that's why I love you.
You want to talk about political business? Whatever you want to talk about, Kwame, it don't matter. I just want to talk to you because I love you. You want to talk about political prisoners? You want to talk about whatever you want to talk about? You're welcome to talk because I love you.
Don't be like the other brother who was on the verge of cursing me out, and he kept telling me he loved me. Right? He's on the verge of cursing me out.
No.
I ain't even do that to him, but he all mad at me. Yo, man, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't do or say that. Right?
No, really.
He kept telling me he loved me. I'm like, yo, why
I love us. Even when we disagree, even when I disagree with my people, I love my people. Look, man. We had a rule in those Ansar's days: we won't hurt black people. Too many people are hurting black people for us to hurt black people. We may disagree, we may argue, we had crazy ideas, but we ain't gonna hurt nobody. Not intentionally. No, we're not gonna do that. No way. Not with our own people. No. We can't afford to do that. So it's like real love. All right. So I guess that's a no, right? So, inshallah, all right, close out.
I have a question before we close out. Suhaib said it was very beneficial. I want to know how everyone else feels about tonight's discussion. Do y'all believe it was beneficial or it's something that you really didn't care about? Let us know. Give us some feedback right now, please. Hurry up. Thanks. I know probably some people thought we're talking about Assata. The conversation is going to go one way. No.
Yeah, I was one of those. I thought this conversation, this turned out to be a very beneficial conversation.
Alhamdulillah. 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 And we only scratched the surface with her. And the beautiful thing about it is she's popular because of the dramatic situation of her, escaping and all that kind of stuff. But she was a worker. See, she wasn't Huey P. Newton, Eldridge Cleaver, or none of these other well-known leaders during that time. She was She wasn't Elaine Brown or Angela Davis. She looked up to all of those women and all that kind of stuff. She was a regular worker. Her situation made her famous. And I think this is also, it should be beneficial for our sisters, because not only because she was a sister, but like there's so many other aspects of her situation that I wanted to read. Like, you know, she had like a relatively normal upbringing, but she became conscious and she wanted to put in some work. She was active, like she said, working, robbing banks and all that kind of stuff, feeding children, helping teach class, stuff like organizing. And sometimes that's all it takes for them to make you an enemy, because you're talking about freeing your people.
You know the sad thing, I'm telling you, right? What's relevant when I be listening to these conversations, I don't know if y'all ever think, I think about it all the time, because I know how these people can be. And, you know, I'm kind of considered an outstanding citizen in the state of New Jersey. And I have good relationships with government officials and law enforcement. But as a Black man, I know it can, overnight, it all can change. Right? And that's sad. I know we're just a conspiracy away. It's sad. That hurts. But I know it's real. And no matter what, I know this whole thing can, like, tomorrow is over. Whole different thing. Right? And I think many of us don't realize that, because we never really been in the real struggle. We don't know what it's like. We actually don't realize that we up against the beast. And we pray for good. May Allah protect us. May Allah, but this thing, man, overnight can be totally different. I know what it's like. I'm not a person who didn't live it. I lived it. I know what it's like. Firsthand. It's not some story someone's telling me. It's real. Right? That stuff she talking about, we lived it. It's not a story. It's not a game. It's not, it's something we read in the book. No, we lived it. People ain't playing with us. They'll forget you and wipe you off the face of the earth while you're alive. So when we're still under those, like, I'll give you an example. We all watch P. Diddy's stuff, and we make all these jokes, baby, or you in this, and freak offs, and blah, 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 blah. But really, we don't see what's happening. They gave a guy a RICO charge by himself. Does that register to any of us? They gave a Black man a RICO charge with no co-defendants. Think about that. That should make your eyes go like this, right? And he was a multi-hundred millionaire, a baby billionaire. And overnight, they turned the lights out on him. And guess what we did? We turned the lights out on him too. And that can happen to any one of us.
Like you said, that's all it takes. All it takes is for anybody to make one person mad and decide that be the wrong person, and they make you the enemy. They create a whole narrative around you, right? Whether it's real or not, it don't even matter. It's true or not, it don't even matter. And Like you said, they can make you disappear in a few different type of ways.
And they set the environment up so it's that easy. It's so easy. And I think about it all the time. We're a walking conspiracy. But it's just, do they want you or not? Do they really think you significant enough? Just turn the lights out on you. Boom, over. So when we think about that, it is essential that before they turn the lights out, we do as much work we can to set it for the next one that's going to come after us. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's why we have to speak the way, because if the lights get turned out, you got to leave some sound for someone else. You know how some animals, they spray the area so they can find their way back, or if somebody get lost, that's what we got to do. This noise always got to exist, right? Or we done. Because for individuals, just turn out the lights, quick, boom, 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 you out, you out, you out, you out. And when they turn out the lights, the way they turn the lights out, everybody gets scared and run for the woods. Because, really, all of us be talking. How many of us, they going to say, all right, you got 20 years in the feds. That whole story get different now. All that talk, all that, I'm down. You start thinking about your career, your job, your children, your grandchildren. They don't want to hear none of that. Lights out. And you got to be able to stand on all that. And be honest, how many of us are really cut like that? So there must be someone who's willing to take that sacrifice. Not that you're doing nothing wrong. You don't have to do nothing wrong. We always talk about they was innocent. This didn't happen. You was innocent. You was in. How many people do 30 years and find out they was innocent? 20 years, find out they was innocent. No evidence. That's normal. But somebody got to be willing to put their neck on the line. And that's why we have to support those who are out front. Even if we don't like them, we got to support them. We got to support them. And Imam Siraj, he said something one day that I will never forget. He said, if you can't see the vision, trust the visionary. If you can't see the vision, trust the visionary. Y'all remember him at the Black Imams, the African American Islamic Summit when he said that? When it was in Masjid Muhammad. That was so powerful. And if we look at those men like that, I see Imam Siraj, I see Imam Zayd. They getting old. They can't do this no more. Even if Imam Talibs, those soldiers who were on the ground for decades, they can't do it no more. Where's the next generation of real soldiers? Because all these people, they know sacrifice. They came from these eras, what we're talking about. Where's the next generation of people like that? We gotta just get the young, say let's get young. The young people, unfortunately, young people don't even realize they got an enemy. It's the same, right? We still in struggle. It ain't changed. And all you gotta do is go around the country. And we need to do that. We need to not go just to give talk. We need to go visit our communities and observe them. Just watch. Go around the country and look at African-American masjids and communities and see the condition and just observe. You know how we go to masjids and we look up at the ceiling? You know, we got this thing going on, what we do? Not just looking at the ceiling, actually go there and spend a couple days with the imam around the country and see what's really happening. Right? So when we ask you, we're thinking what it takes to do this work. And we're on the ground every day living it. So that's why you should come visit us. That's why you should come come when we have these gatherings, like we have the next gathering, October the 18th in Harlem. We got to get that. You got the flyer address and any of that? The Harlem event?
I think it's 63 West 124th Street, Bethany Community Center.
Oh, there it go. Who put that up? Oh. All right. So this is Saturday, October the 18th. The Black Imams Roundtable will be in the village of Harlem, 63 West 124th Street. What's that, the Bethany Outreach Center?
Yep, Bethany Outreach Center.
Free event. And these free events we're able to do with all of our continued support. The event after that, the Black Imams Roundtable, summary of the Seerah of the Chosen One, November 7th and 8th in Atlantic City at Masjid Muhammad. This one's a paid event, only $50, not really expensive. But this is all to keep us going and teach the knowledge. And it's going to get more. Same place, right? So, all right, we can close out. I think I hit everything, right? Did I? Oh, and then December 25th to the 28th, this is our winter knowledge retreat. We'll do the narration of the book Riyadh al-Salihin of Imam al-Nawawi, inshallah, from beginning to end, with the authorization to transmit the text. So inshallah, that is something that will be happening Christmas weekend. That gives us 4 days to complete the book, inshallah. Bitawfiqillah, we'll be able to do it. That will be with Sheikh Abdullah Aziz Al-Khattab, who will be coming from Al-Azhar in Cairo, Egypt. Inshallah ta'ala. So these are upcoming events. And with that, we'll close out. Did we? Oh, we didn't get the questions. There were a couple questions real quick.
Next week, cuz.
What kind of answer questions, bro?
Oh, man.
Imam Naeem. Come on, man. We hanging out, man.
No, you hanging out. We ain't doing nothing.
Question. Someone told me there are still plantations in the South and slaves working cotton fields, and they don't know they're free. She said there's a documentary on PBS. Have you heard this? No, I haven't heard of it.
Hey, who was that? Was that you? Remember we went to Plantation, Florida? Who was with me in the car when we ran past that? Remember we went to Florida for that event?
Yeah, I remember the town called Plantation, right?
Yeah, Plantation, Florida. And last one, for Khan.
When thinking about activism, revolution, and Islam, would it be best to have a separate organization that's ran by Muslims that will be that activist revolution branch and a religious branch that would uphold the obligations and teaching the religion?
All right, go ahead, Imam.
You answer first.
You got his question, right?
Yeah, I got
it. You got that question? I'm gonna take it off so you can see you.
Yeah, I don't have no answer though.
Oh, come on, man.
Man.
He did a lot for that.
I know that's what Malcolm did. I'm not sure I would necessarily do that. Because I think in our mind, we don't exist. And I've seen this just with dealing with our people. In our mind, we don't see ourselves as real unless we become an entity. a nonprofit, an LLC, sole proprietorship, a for-profit corporation. I think a lot of us in our mind, when we say organization, that's what we're thinking about. A legal entity. So I'm kind of hesitating on answering his question because I don't know if that's what he means by organization. Because remember, a lot of people encouraged us to make the Black Imams Roundtable an entity, make it a nonprofit. And why do we need it? We already got nonprofit status and all that stuff with our masters and all. We don't need all that, right? But see, a lot of people cannot function outside of that framework. And I also think that implicit in the question is the idea that deen is only Aqidah, Salat, Zakat, fasting, Ramadan, and maybe marriage and stuff like that. But activism and community organizing, we don't look at that as religious stuff. I think that idea has to change. So me personally, you know, another organization, the masters should be doing all of
that. I think there's some realities we got to face. There's no such thing as a collective Muslim agenda that we're going to agree upon. We got to get that out of our mind. It's not real. It's going to come from Allah's side, not from our side. I think we're wasting time with that. I think what we need to do is find some Muslims that agree on the same thing and are willing to cooperate with one another. Right? And I think that is our first step. No organization, who's willing to cooperate with one another. Once we discover that, the next thing is to have some form of allegiance with one another and leadership that we agree, so we can have some direction. And that don't need to be something that's organized. I think it needs to be something at the heart level that we agree upon. Because just making organizations, we had organizations, ain't none of them worked, not a one. Other than that, we wouldn't be talking about organizations. So obviously that's not working. What we need to do is come together at the heart level, have those difficult conversations, and then from those difficult conversations, that group will elect among them someone who's going to lead, and the others agree to follow that lead. Without a leader, we done. It ain't gonna happen. Somebody gotta be, the Prophet ﷺ always appointed someone ahead of anything they were doing. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you gotta have that. But if we be honest, even our leaders don't want to follow. Our leaders, who are leaders right now in whatever, right, they don't want to follow. So that's a problem. And when we have this individual mindset of my community, my group, I don't got to follow nobody. And if all of us are acting like that, well, there you go, right? So we got to fix that mindset. But in order to fix that mindset, we have to have real conversation with leaders, not with common people. And when I mean common people who don't even have the potential to be leaders, we need to get our leaders in a room and hash it out. Because the leaders are the one keeping the common people ready to go. The congregation, they're ready to go. Our people's ready to go. We don't got no leadership. And the leaders are not ready to go together. They're ready to go individually, right? And Imam Faheem, this is where I should stop, right? No, seriously. If you ever been in a real thing where there's leaders, right? You can't just be going off on your own doing what you want. No, it don't work. You have to have some, respect for some level of authority from somewhere. We've become a people who don't respect no authority. Zero from nobody. Nobody tells me what to do. At the heart level, we got to fix that. And I think until we fix that we're willing to surrender our own desires and egos for the collective, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult. We can't have this, who's this Negro telling me what to do? Somebody got to tell you what to do. Please at least start with letting it be some Negro. If that's the way you want to, let it be somebody. Is nobody can tell you what to do? Nobody. How many of y'all understand my point here? Do you agree or disagree? This point that we have collectively a lack of desire to follow anybody.
I agree. We'll talk about how good a leader is or was after he died, and say all that good stuff. And we're like, all right, you knew all that when he was alive. Why you ain't follow?
No, it's something we got to fix. So inshallah, right now, all of us got 3 leaders in front of us, right? Who agreed to work and cooperate for this effort. Support your leaders. Support your leaders. So I'm going to challenge us to make sure we step it up. Inshallah. Let's step it up. We could do it. Trust me, we could do it. And the good thing is when you have leaders that are accessible. One thing's, and trust me, none of us want to be leaders. Not a one of us. And maybe because you don't want to do it, you might be fit to start it off. I don't think we fit to do the big picture. I think we're fit to get us on the road. But I think that leader, we're going to have to build. That leader we're looking for, we're going to have to collectively have you have an interim leader, what they call it, interim leader, for a minute till we collectively build the one we need. So let's start where we at with what we have and support it and make it work. May Allah reward you all. Okay, I'm done. I'm getting ready to do my own live right now. I didn't ever get Imam Faheem right. I'm getting ready to do my own 2-hour live.
Post BRT did a Fudger.
Right.
Don't lay down.
Go
get some rest, man.
Now, can I tell you what got me going?
What's that?
I saw something today. Someone sent me something that really disturbed me. Right? It disturbed me tomorrow. I'm going to send it to y'all when we finish. Because I have background with the whole thing. And I'm like, there's just such a level of disrespect for us, right, as a people, and we don't see it. And we'll support every endeavor except our own, while people are blatantly disrespecting us, right? And Others has positioned themselves that we can't even censor them, right? Because we will be like, oh man, why are we hating? And they disrespecting the crap out of us, making a joke out of us. But too many of us is like, yo man, I need the bag. I need the bag, bro. I'll be your clown for the bag. And our own people are doing it, selling out for the bag. Our own people who we know, and it hurts, right? It really, really hurts. And they've done it over the same play, over and over and over again, and we never say enough is enough. Just it's the same. They don't even change the game. It's the same daggone play. You know, as in sports, they run the same up the middle, up the middle, up the middle, fake handoff, long pass, touchdown. Same stuff. Damn, they ran that play 5 times. You ain't catch it yet. Nope. And guess what? They're going to run another 5 if you're waiting for me to catch it. It hurts. So really, I have a lot of background noise because I'm figuring how can we stand up as a community. You know, in my mind, it's like back there. I'm so tired of watching the destruction of the Black community. Like turns my stomach. Even with Islam, we watching it. And I lived enough to see when we weren't like this. We didn't have all the knowledge. We didn't. But we used to build, man, as a community. We used to build. When we were in charge of our own communities, when we were charting our own courses, we used to build. All the stuff we talking about was easy until somebody subjugated us, educated us, indoctrinated us, subjugated us, and annihilated us in the future. All right, that's my long pity party. I'm out. Y'all ready? Who gonna close out?
I think Imam Faheem want to close out.
No, I didn't, but you know, since you put me on the spot, alhamdulillah, we thank you all for riding with us this extended Black Imams Roundtable tonight. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless and honor you all. We hope that we were able to relay a message that was beneficial and informative. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this from us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us solutions and open up our hearts for communication. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the leaders to connect in the community, organizers and revolutionaries, all of those people who are on the ground moving and shaking, that Allah will bring us together and help us to move forward. Amin. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.